Hey there, Stalker lovers. Welcome back to the next installment of the Support Stalker experiment. Today, we're taking a look at the analysis, the results of those team missions I ran the other day with my new Support Stalker overexposure, the Meltdown Stalker, the Flash before the Ash. The whole concept being she's going to melt your face with a bunch of minus defense, minus damage resistance powers and attacks and abilities. Throw in a little bit of crowd control, namely from stun and some knockdowns. And through that combination, support her team. Not because of raw damage and assassinating, killing big old bosses, but debilitating the entire group of enemies around her, enabling her teammates to get easier and faster kills. That's her plan. That's the idea. That is the concept behind this support stalker. Creating some builds that allow the team to more efficiently work through a mission, survive a mission, defeat enemies, etc., etc. We're going to be taking a look at the run of missions. We're going to go through the missions, react to what all happened, and whilst we're doing that, we're going to occasionally pause and pull up some of the actual numbers from the runs and give you the rundown of what all happened. So before we get started, let's take a look at what the team lineup is for this adventure. So here's what I do. I run a team of 5, and that includes my stalker, who is the lone true support archetype, if you will, at least in this experiment, of the entire team. So the rest of the team, no defenders, no controllers, no corruptors, no masterminds, nobody with those traditional support sets available to them. So I am the team supporter. And then I have 4 allies, 4 teammates. So I've got a team here with a scrapper, 2 blasters, and a peacebringer. And little spoiler up front, the initial missions I run, those 5 missions, set to 54, level 54 times 8. We run a set of 5 of those, ending in typically a safeguard or a mayhem mission. And then I record the stats, but spoiler, that set of missions that I ran this first go round, I had a little technical problem. So I ended up not being able to log the first set of 5 missions. I have it recorded, and I'll probably post that as at a later date as a different type of video. But anyway, I bring it up now because Ranger Ricky, I'm not going to introduce them because they were there for the first 5, but then the player Apocalypse switches to a different character, Gamma Rot, a tank, which I'll show you instead. So anyway, let's do the rundown of who my teammates are. We've got Epic Stranger here. They are a blaster, vet level 66, so they're packing all their incarnate goodies. But one thing else to know about these test runs is that there are no incarnates being used except for alpha slots by my teammates. My support character, my support stalker, has full access to their incarnate abilities, and most of the characters I'm testing are tier 3 for everything. So, vet level 66, fully incarnated, but only using alpha, fire blast, ice manipulation, mace mastery as their epic. So pretty much a damage dealer with a little bit of control here. Then we've got our next contestant for the team is going to be all right, Arjuna Ascended. Let's take a look at their information. They are vet level 37. We have another blaster. Archery, tactical arrow, and mace mastery. Actually, I would say this is arguably a type of support character because tactical arrow is very trick arrow like. So this is a pretty good debuffing set. So we got a little bit of debuffery going on here in combination with some light control there from Epic Stranger. So not too bad of a combo of blasters. And of course, they're bringing the big damage on top of that, as most blasters are. And then last but not least, our 5th ally here is our good friend Give. Give is playing a Triform Peacebringer. And Triform Peacebringer, one thing I would say his character is kind of built to do is he's a bit of a healer light. He does have ally heals, self heals. He also has like I think I don't let's say the temp res power, but I think it's from day jobs or whatever. But he does bring in some of that sort of defendery healing traditional sort of stuff. A measly vet level 1,471. We go ahead and reset. We bring on Gamma Rot. Gamma Rot is a regen radiation melee. I forget vet level, whatever. I know they're level 50 though. So that's our crew, that's our team. And we reset the mission, get ourselves going with the first one is against some longbow. This is a tip mission. We're running red side. And we're going to go annihilate portal core or something to that effect. All right, so team is set. We got some beef with our tank. You have Guyve who could off tank with his dwarf mode. Couple blasters to lay down some smack. Guyve also can blast if he wants. He's got a little bit of healing, like I said. You got some light control debuff going on with our two blasters. So I think overall the team on paper is decent, but by no means is this like looking at this squad going, oh yeah, they got this. They got all kinds of controls and all kinds of support. We don't, right? It's really going to be heavily reliant upon what I can do as far as support goes. And with this particular build, which I went over the build video a couple weeks ago, Overexposure is not designed as some sort of traditional supporter. She's designed in an offensive capacity. She's designed to melt faces, right? She's there to shred the defenses with some minus defense radiation stuff. Shred minus resistance as well. Got several procs like Achilles heel in the build. And then tertiary to all that, I've got some controls, some mostly stuns with my disrupt aura, and then damage, of course, but primarily not a damager. All right, let's go ahead and fire this up. See what all happens here. Let's play this thing. All right, all they're doing is they're just pissing me off, and I'm really gonna start destroying some shit. Yeah, because at this point, not only had I forgotten or messed up the log chat, then when I did get the team, then we jumped into AE. We're gonna run some 801 incarnate stuff. Then we aborted that because the team's like, well, let's just rerun the 5 missions. Then I started the 5 missions, but I had forgotten that I'd lowered my difficulty for the AE run. So then I had to get them all out of the map, and then I had to restart it again. It was just a pain in the ass. So at this point, I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm gonna get pissed. I think Guy's making fun of me, telling me it's the beer talking. Yeah, don't drink in COH. Make mistakes. Oh, these idiots. No offense, Guy. Oh shit. Oh yeah, it wasn't Longbow, it was Peacebringers. Ugh, even worse. Alright, there's my classic opener move here. No offense, Guy. For my shit, I hate these guys. Meltdown Stalker. Pop around. Melt armor. And then hurl pyronics. So I'm getting the big debuff of resistance, defense, and then landing a damage for my judgment plus the stun. Then go fireball goes in there. I'm doing my jaunt attack. That was the other thing I've been doing that I love with this this build. So you see the big old melt armor. That's my big debuff. Getting the minus defense, getting the minus resistance on the enemies. Pyronics coming in there for the big damage and the stun. Pyro, stun, damage. Then I threw fireball in there. I believe I have a minus resistance damage proc in there. Then I think I went ahead and jaunted and then Atom Smasher. So then jaunt, which gets me right into the fight. A little teleport. Atom Smasher. Atom Smasher, I think I have the knock down in that. Plus, it's got more damage, or not damage resistance, but defense debuffing. So I'm throwing out my heavy hitters really quick. But we've got a bunch of guys coming, as you can see, or a bunch of these peace bringers coming from this room. I kind of like what Guy has done here. He's in dwarf mode and he's pulling, I believe. I think it was him that pulled. Maybe it was Gammarot. But somebody brings them back because this room, you just dive in there. A lot of times people get their ass handed to them. See, they got a lot of enemies there. All right, screw it. Bring out the long butts. And these 54 peace bringers are no joke. A lot of incoming damage, a lot of debuff from them. I mean, here's where you want control. No mercy time. Right, you have all this incoming stuff. If you have some control, this is a good place for it. You can start to lock down some of this crap. Because you can see we're taking lots of damage. There's lots of enemies in here. It'd be nice to be able to get some CC out there. All right, this is no mercy time. I don't have any way to heal anybody. Arjuna's right there. Boom. So Arjuna. Man down, man. So much incoming damage. One of our blasters gets smashed. We don't have any heals other than what Guy is packing with his character and whatever the players themselves have on their characters. I don't have any heals. I don't really have much. This is not a very protecting support character at all. My protection is I get into melee and start to melt the enemies so that my teammates can kill them quickly and thereby take less damage. And obviously in this scenario, it's not going to be super effective just given the fact that, you've got this room. Let me sketch this out here. You've got this long room. We're coming in from this end. You got enemies here. There was a group here. I think there's probably two groups. I think this was a special group right there, like a boss group. I think there's a hostage right there. So we're back here fighting in this area, and we're taking a lot of range damage, at least from this group, possibly this group at this point. These guys are shooting us. We're still in that hallway. My character, to be effective, I need to get a clustered group of enemies and get in there and start debuffing that defense, debuffing that resistance, getting some stuns, getting some knockdown. Then my teammates go in there and just lay them out with their attacks. So I'm not able to leverage that in the scenario. Boom, down goes your blaster. He's taking a bunch of range hits. There's stuff flying every which way. Man down. I got freaking dwarfs all over me. Taunting. Man, my defenses are holding tough. This character is pretty damn survivable, I found out after the first 5 missions. Right, my defenses are pretty tough, though. I got 50-60% for a lot of my stuff. Most of it's type defenses. My positionals aren't that great, but my type defenses are solid. I eat a purple. That's going to get me up in that 70% range pretty quickly. But one thing about these peace bringers is they do a lot of minus defense, so you got to be careful. Once you start laying into you, it just cascades. All right. But I want to stay in melee. I want to get my debuffs going. Freaking peace bringers. Filthy peace bringers. Oh, why am my longbow charged up there like that? Jaunt? Boom, yep, jaunt attack. Love it. Add a smasher. Energy drain. So the stuns are flying already on these guys. Got that little PPD drone is stunned. This is something else I found this character's really good at. is this rescue TP. So I'm up front fighting away, and I'm looking at my team window, and I'm seeing OG is getting, oh no, he's getting wrecked. Right, we've got our tank up here. We've got our dwarf peacebringer, so our two, beefcakey aggro magnets. And I'm seeing this damage, and I'm like, well, what the hell's going on? Because we just killed those guys back there. We got a new group up here. What are they taking damage from? There's a couple guys over here, but they seem to have their focus on our tank, so this doesn't make any sense. So then I start to click in my head. I'm like, I bet you there's a reser behind us because the stupid filthy peacebringers will do that. So I pan around to look, and sure enough, that's what I'm seeing back here. Is we got our friendly neighborhood blaster. He's getting worked by this peacebringer boss right here. I don't know where the other blaster is at this time. Here's my lore pet. My cataphract is pumping away. So he's pretty much solo. Maybe Arjuna's back there too somewhere. It's hard to see. But remember, Arjuna had just gotten back up from getting wrecked. So now another blaster's getting smoked. But here's where Jaunt comes in handy. I don't have the ability to taunt, but I can teleport. So that's what you're gonna see me do. I'm gonna teleport over here, and I've got my Jaunt keybound to the letter T. So whenever I click the letter T, whatever I have targeted with my little click reticle there, I will teleport right to it. And I was looking this up. The range on Jaunt, if I remember, was 300 feet. That's like huge, right? That's a huge freaking distance that I can teleport. So this is no problem. I'm going to be able to jaunt right over there and start laying into this guy. Hopefully distract him and peel him off from beating on our blaster over here. So that's exactly what you're going to see me do. And what was kind of interesting is the first, few missions, those first 5 that I didn't get the stats on, I wasn't aware of this. I started developing the tactics because this is only the second time I've played this character to any depth. I played her in my solo testing. Before that, it was just some farting around and practicing jaunt. So this is the second time I've played it. The first time I played her in a team setting. So I didn't really know what she could do, what she was capable of, other than my on-paper concept. So I'm discovering she's pretty tough as far as defenses go. And she doesn't have like anything other than that to keep herself alive. She's got some defense. She's got a little heal, not too bad, some end drain. But I do have this offensive capability, and I have this ability to get downrange quickly by teleporting. A reser back there? Yeah, you guys are a reser. Hold on. So I got him targeted. Bang. Teleport to him. Hit him. So now I've got him distracted. My lore pets are on him now. Don't die, guy. I'm killing your brothers back here. All right, now Guy is taking the hits. Let's get over there. Teleport again. Kind of liking Jaunt as an idea for a tank, because then I can get across the battlefield really fast to help allies. Something else I'm discovered about this character is she burns through endurance like it's nobody's business. It's crazy. So I'm really glad that I have my ageless to get the endurance recharge. Energy drain's nice, but I gotta be in melee to use it. I need an enemy target to use it. So that's not obviously something you can rely on all the time. But ageless, once it's up, I can fire it, rejuice, refill my blue bar. Plus I get the debuff resistance from it. All right, Miss Thistle. Oh, teleporting tanks? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Guy was saying that's how he builds his. Somebody commented about that was watching the stream. That they also do this teleporting tank, and it just never clicked to me that it was a thing. I'm always, oh, taunt, pull it. Now I'm like, oh, teleport into the enemies. I don't think I have much side offense. Yeah, my side offense is trash. I don't get caged. Rulies. Now we've got two beefy guys that are going in there pretty much every time, so I don't need to worry about it. But what it, I don't worry about tanking or pulling aggro too much. So what it does allow me to do though is be able to just leap in there, either as the alpha strike, get in there, atom smash or whatever, or immediately after the tanks are in there. You can see, the two tankies are kind of up there already. Arjuna's getting into position. We just finished these guys back here. So boom, jaunt in there, hit them. And I become more aggressive as this missions progress. Thinking this could be a good pick for, let's say, your beta tank on these 801s. They have good maneuverability to get where they need to get. I don't think I've ever seen the big watcher bosses. I don't know if they summon, but there was like, or they split. But I've seen more like minion pets. I don't know who is summoning those. And we're just smoking these guys. Pretty disgusting. So I don't know if these are ambushes or Gaiv was taunting. Because I know Gaiv had been taunting in previous missions where he would kind of jump up to the next room, taunt, and then bring him back. They got slaughtered. That's cool. But I didn't know if these, again, if that was what was going on, or because you see a bunch of NPC dialogue popping up. So I think it's ambushers. I also like that I can just get on a runner, just jaunt to them. It's a little bit expensive on the endurance side, but not too bad. It's kind of nice because it sort of replaces a ranged attack. I just teleport to an enemy. This is a classic noob trap right here, yeah. I think I'm going to back off. Noob trap. Frick, back off of that one. Yep, noober trap. Almost fell for it. Target in the air. What the hell? Come on. Yeah, I forget which power wouldn't work when there's... I didn't even see if Gamma Rot brought. What you got, Gamma? Yeah, here's why I look at Gamma Rot's stats. Alright, so Vet 8, Regen, Radiation Melee, Energy Mastery. See, it looks like he's just kind of a beefy character, which obviously a tank, but he's got the Fighting Pool, Energy Mastery, Regen combination, plus Maneuver, so he's got a lot of defense, a lot of resistance, a lot of regeneration. So mostly survivability, not a lot of attack. I think that's what he was complaining about. Doesn't have much in the way of attacks. He's only vet level 8, so he's not going to be fully like tier 3'd or whatever in all his powers at this point. Unless he gave himself some transcendent merits. Gen Red. And energy. Oh, you got the bubble, huh? Looks like Gamma Rot got bubbled. Caged. So the one nice thing that I definitely noticed here is when I ran my solo test, if you didn't see that video, what are you waiting for? It is posted up to Twitch, and I think it's on my YouTube channel as well. But when I ran solo, my disruption aura, which you see is that like swirling yellow around me, I wanted it. That was kind of like the linchpin crux of this whole character's, at least their control aspect, because it has a stun effect that it, I don't know if it's auto hit or whatever, but anyway, enemies around it they get stunned. It's a low mag, like mag 2, I think. So you can stun minions, maybe lieutenants. But anyway, wasn't too worried about that because I had other stun. But the problem I ran into, and what I guess I found, I think Apocalypse was telling me this on our Discord server, but I think he was saying that the disruption also has like a flee effect or fear or whatever. And so this is what I think was explaining when I ran my solos. A bunch of the targets just kept running away. I'm like, why do they keep running? And I think he was telling me that it has this effect to it, which I missed or something. I didn't even notice that. So that was definitely a problem. Things kept running away. I'm like, why do they keep running? But you'll notice here, even though it's still causing that effect, you don't see it because stuff is dying before it is a problem. So you're getting the benefit of an ability without the drawback, the detriment. And that's one of the things to keep in mind when you're looking at a build or putting something together. Is one of the big questions you should ask yourself is, how are you going to play the game? Are you going to be soloing a lot? Because that might mean you have to change your, well, you're going to have to change your strategy. But your powers may behave differently. Your tactics might have to evolve to deal with it versus your teaming predominantly, in which case it's a little easier to play team a lot because you have other people on your team that are plugging the holes or contributing things that you lack. So that was something to watch here, and I'm not even seeing. I don't see people running away. They're pretty much getting stunned and then being dead. It sucks that I can't hit these things because they're flying with my corrosive vial. Yeah, corrosive vial. You have to be a ground target only. A lot of enemies down here. Not liking it. Taking a lot of damage. Oh, shit. I ended up leaning on corrosive vial a lot more than I thought I was. And maybe I shouldn't have leaned on it as much as I did, but it does have some debuff to it, and it does have some knockback, and it does do some, damage. So I was chucking it a whole bunch. It's my only ranged AoE attack, so it's one of the reasons I'm using it so much. But anyway, you keep hearing it crashing, and the problem I was running into is flyers like this dude. You can't hit him with it because it creates a patch. You like lob this grenade, this vial, and it explodes under them, and then people in that little patch area take damage. I have some knockback proc in there. I think debuff is part of the power itself, but that was one thing that was a pain in the butt with this thing. Guys up top, guys down low. Oh yeah, this part. I was so tempted right here, and this is what I was about to do it. Because we got this group up top here. There's another group or part of this top group down here, and then there's the Peacebringer group back here, and there's one of the Miss Thistle targets we have to take out. I was so determined at this point. I'm like, I'm gonna teleport down here and get in here because I'm really feeling it now. I'm like, yeah, we can kick these guys' asses. Yeah, I'm taking some damage, but I'm able to, resist it, heal it, whatever. The team's kicking ass. They've come in right behind whatever I'm doing. So I was like, I'm about to go do this. And then I think Give spoils all my fun. A lot of dudes down there. Miss Fissel. Or maybe it's another area just like this one. We got rear action, I think, coming. There was one of the maps where I do that, unless I'm thinking of previous 5 missions where I was going to dive down there, and then he ends up taunting them up. More PB&Js. So I like with this aura, you are able to plug holes. It's kind of like a little bit of a taunt aura-ish stunning. You're going to draw some aggro. I don't know which one's Guyve. I think he's the one having a fit. More enemies coming in. There's that knockdown from Corrosive Vial. I'm able to kind of plug the doorway with it. I'm sitting here taking range hits, so I think I just dive in here at some point. It's like, this is getting ridiculous. I need to stay in contact. I almost got lit up. He's stunned. Freaking light form nonsense. You can see the debuffs on these enemies, the minus defense, minus resistance. Some of that's from me. Guyve also has minus defense with his Peacebringer attacks. She goes again, Miss Fissel. Boom, teleport to get the guy. But then I was like, oh crap, dudes are flying right past me. I like to use my endurance drain. You can see I'm getting stuns with it. That thing procs a bunch. The stun in your is it not energy? Is it energy manipulator? Well, one of those. I've got it in my energy drain power. There's another time it's stunned. She's stunned. Thistle stunned. Because that's stacking nicely with my disruption aura. So I'm pretty much just tanking this doorway right now. Got a couple bosses. You got Miss Thistle in there. I'm hurling everything AoE-wise I've got in there. We've got the door just stoppered. Bang. There it is. It's been real. All right, so solid performance so far. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the stats. We had the 1 death, so that'll kind of be where we maybe start talking deaths at this point. So this is just the first mission, but I do want to start talking about the overall picture here. So we run 5 total missions this go round. And you can see I've got my other 3 support stalker data sets here as well. But here's overexposure in green on the bottom. And as you can see, I don't die until the very last mission, which I don't want to spoil beyond that. So once you get into the mayhem, I do bite it. But super survivable, just like you see him with Uncaged Psyche, just like you saw with Xaos, who had no deaths. The only one of my stalkers that had any problems at all was Dead Cell, and a lot of that wasn't him. If you go back and watch his videos, his team videos, just see his team was really just kind of trash. We didn't have any tanking, and so Dead Cell was trying to act as the tank during that whole thing, and he was way too many times was in the thick of it and wasn't built to do that. But anyway, so no deaths for me. The mission times are pretty short, right? This one was 13 minutes. The next one's going to be half of this time, 11 minutes, 9 minutes. So pretty quick missions. Even the Mayhem was pretty short. I mean, I've run most Mayhems are 30 plus that I've experienced ish. Although overall, I mean, these Stalkers have been doing pretty good with the Mayhems and the safeguards. But a lot of my DEF CON practice has been around that 30-minute mark or longer. So pretty quick. And that was kind of this girl's idea, right? The whole point being that your minus defense, your minus damage resistance is supposed to be designed to speed kills, right? So that my allies and I are hitting more often and hitting harder. That's the whole point. I got to get in there, get into melee, start letting that radioactive juice spread, and start wiping stuff out. So overall, the Stalkers are pretty strong and locked with each other. Kind of best way to put it. You can look at the graph here. So overall, she's as sturdy as the other two disruption focused stalkers, which would be Uncaged Psyche and Dead Cell. I mean, they kind of the similar concepts to what she's attempting to do. They want to get into melee, they want to disrupt, they want to debuff, they want to disorient, they want to leverage control. So the three of them are kind of playing that similar style. Get into melee and start mixing up. Xaos Warden, that was my more he could stand back a little bit. He was my defensive shielding character. So if you look at them, they're all playing very similar to each other. The only little bit of outlier there, of course, is Dead Cell, which had a couple, mostly just that one mission where he died a couple times or things just went haywire. Then the team kind of got its act together in the next few. But almost identical stat wise when you take a look at them from the correlation standpoint. Then the other thing we can take a look at is our stats, the same numbers you just saw, but when we plot them out as side-by-side comparisons of the rates between the 4 stalkers that I've tested and then the composites, which is the distribution data. So with this, we're taking a look at the question, these average defeats per minute that we're seeing. The differences from one stalker to the next, to the next, to the next. Do they mean anything? Does it mean that, wow, Dead Cell, he's freaking terrible because he's got the highest defeat per minute? That's where the side by side and the error bars come in. So when you take a look at these error bars here, that's this vertical line that goes up and down. When we take a look at that, what we're looking for is their overlap between those error bars as you draw them across. Because the true actual average based upon the data isn't exactly the number you're calculating this 0.029. There's a range of possible averages. That's the error, because you have volatile data. You have data that's gray area, right? You got stuff that's not super precise as you do the mission after mission. You're not getting the exact same data. So Dead Cell had the widest spread of data, and because of that, his true average is somewhere in this range. And the same idea over here with Uncaged Psyche and overexposure. So we have overlap on these stalkers bar graphs here, these averages of their rates. So there's really no difference. If you have overlap, there's no statistical difference between these stalkers. So yeah, it looks like, wow, Dead Cell is terrible. He's 3-4 times what they're getting with personal defeats per minute. But the reality is, statistically speaking, it's really no damage. Xaos might be the only exception outlier here because he had 0 deaths total, so he doesn't have any variance in his data. He's locked in down here. So he's the one guy that you could say, yeah, for sure, Dead Cell is worse than him. And then when we take that data and look at the distribution of their composites, this is that rate that we just calculated, the per minute we divided by the number of teammates that they have. That gives us this composite score. And then we just plot this out, the data points, to show the spread of the data on these box and whisker plots, they're called. Although a lot of times you'll see them done this way. But anyway, the basic idea is this, that the majority of the data, half the data falls within the box, and then the whiskers is the other 25% and 25% for the 100%. And so the wider the spread of data, the more spread out your box is, the longer the whiskers are. That gives you an idea of inconsistency. So Dead Cells show an inconsistency in his data. And again, that's because he had the one mission where he was kind of taking a big beating, where the other stalkers didn't have any weird outlier missions. And you also have to take it in the context that these are very small numbers. We're not looking at like this is 50 deaths and this is 2, right? This is smidges of difference. But the same idea applies here. We can look for overlap. We can look and see that Dead Cells data is pretty widespread, inconsistent, unreliable, maybe unpredictable, whereas the other stalkers are very tightly related to each other. A lot of overlap regardless. So, yeah, Dead Cells showing the least reliable data, but overall, not crazy. Overexposure, from what you can see from this data, though, she's delivering that damage boosting concept, that minus defense, minus resistance, and she's staying sturdy. She's showing as sturdy as Uncaged Psyche. She's showing more sturdiness than Dead Cell. She's close to what Xaos is contributing. So even though she's more designed to get in the melee and affect the enemy directly without any sort of um, immediate benefit to herself, any sort of protective benefit, right? She's melting armor, she's melting resistances, she's melting defenses, making it easier to hit, but she doesn't have much in the way of protecting herself from being hit, aside from her stunning that she's able to do with that disruption aura and the knockback that I have in a few of my powers. So this is her main mitigation outside of her defenses. But despite that, despite the way she's playing, I mean, she's damn survivable compared to the others, better than one of the others. So that's what you're seeing with this information. Then the other bit of defeat data I want to show before we go back to our video here is the ally defeats. So here we've got, hey, how risky were these missions for my allies? And again, overexposure's down here on the bottom. And you saw the one death from our blaster there in that mission. Well, spoiler, and we'll double check this as we watch the video, but there are no other allied defeats this entire set of missions. So that alone is arguing overexposure's methods are not, hey, they might be working in one sense, but they're at least not harming the team. They're not causing a problem. Very similar to what you saw with Uncaged Psyche, although better. Identical to Xaos, who was designed to be a protector, and way better than what you saw Dead Cell produce. Dead Cell's team was getting lit up, and you can see that here in the slope of this correlation line here. It's huge. How many defeats per minute that was going on here. It was pretty dramatic. And then the R squareds are telling you whether or not this relationship between time and ally defeats is real or not, or how strong it is. And you can see for Uncaged Psyche and for Dead Cell, yeah, these are pretty much locked in. These are pretty close. We're looking for 0.9 or better. And these are pretty darn close. So most of the defeats can be explained by just the length of missions. And that's where you start to get into some interesting question, because the whole idea behind exposure here is to shorten the mission time through her debuffing. And that's something I kind of want to point out, is the total mission time for her was 65. That's the shortest of the 4 that have been tested so far. And I'd have to go back and look at my defenders and controllers and see what it is in comparison to them. But this is pretty damn fast for 5 missions total. So you can't ignore that, I don't think. So maybe it's working. Maybe the fact that she's able to shorten her missions is decreasing the risk to allies, because, right, the enemies are dying before they get a chance to kill any of your teammates. At least that's the way we could try to interpret it. So it looks like she's achieving this offensive support role, and she's not sacrificing team safety to do it. She's not hitting, Xaos perfect low water mark there. But she is avoiding that volatility that you're seeing with Uncaged Psyche and Dead Cell, who have, some pretty big numbers as far as defeats go, like 4 defeats in 6 minutes. That's ridiculous. These aren't too bad, 1 and 2 minutes. These are some of the longer missions, but so you can definitely see how time is impacting defeats for Uncaged Psyche's team. But if you look at, Psyche versus Overexposure, they're both pretty darn close as far as what they're attempting to do. I think get in there and mix it up. She's causing all kinds of disruption with her crazy auras for confusion and whatnot, and Overexposure is similar, causing a lot of stun. But the big difference there, even though they're pretty tight as far as their averages and stuff goes, is she's got a much stronger correlation on Cage does than what you're seeing with Overexposure. So this is arguing that these numbers, if she had longer missions, you're definitely going to see bodies dropping. Whereas Overexposure, there isn't a correlation between time and body drop. You saw that in the very first mission. Boom, Blaster dies. Has nothing to do with the mission being long or whatever, because I don't see any defeats in some of these equally long missions. It's just bad luck, bad placement, whatever. So, pretty good build from what I can see so far. And then when we go ahead and take a look at the ally defeats graph in the side-by-sides here, the average comparisons, these rates, you could see again, here's Dead Cells data. It's really spread out, lots of variability in the data, not very predictable or reliable. Meanwhile, these 3 stalkers are very tight, right? Almost identical, overlapping bars. The only outlier here is Dead Cell. His team was definitely at risk. Was it because of him and his build? I don't think so. I think the team composition was the main issue there. And then when you look at the composite data where we're looking at the distribution, again, very tight data here. The per teammate numbers are almost lockstep with each other. Very strong overlap. Dead Cell, his numbers are skewed big time. And he's got outlying data way up here. Okay, so this is a good representation of the spread of that data. All right, let's go ahead and get back to that video. So overall, Overexposure, very safe. You can't complain with her at the helm. Much better than Dead Cell, of course. And she's not completely safe with the allies, risk-free like Xaos, but she's putting out offense. She's playing a different game, and she's still managing to hold the line, and nobody's dying. Except for one. All right, let's go ahead and get to our second mission. See what happens in this one. Scoot forward. All right, so we're going to go to our next mission. This is what? Silent Blades, another tip mission. Jump ahead. Get the team in there. Here we go. So a little office map. This is the one, I think, with the long bow in it. So let's fire that up. Axis America. Ruleroo. This one has longbow. Yeah, it's something that I like to do these tips and papers is get a good variety of enemy group types so that you can test your build with different damage types, different controls, whatever. So that last mission you had a good variety of weird stuff. Peacebringers, Ruleroo, the Axis America. Now you're gonna have a bunch of longbow. They have a good, mix of damage and buffs and debuffs. Because it's one thing to like mop the floor with council left and right, but can you handle psi damage? Can you handle fire? Negative damage, whatever. No offense, huh? What do you mean? It's offensive. So I'm seeing, looks like a classic noob trap up here. So here it is. I always point these out in my threat assessment videos. This looks like a classic noob trap up here. You got your hallway. There's a corner up here coming around the bend. There's a dead door over here, so nothing's over there. There's a door over here with a room, and there's gonna be people in here. And the noob trap typically is there's another group standing around the corner. And a lot of people, they'll either dive into the room and attack these guys and then get hit from behind, or they'll not see that room and then go around the corner, see these guys, start fighting, and then those guys will attack them. So I'm seeing this sort of classic noob trap setup here. But it turns out not to be the case. She showered. Alright. Guy, you're gonna go into the noob trap, aren't you? Oh god, you guys gotta stop. Can't help you, man. You're dead. So I thought he just ran around the corner. If he's just goofing around or whatever to go do it, but it turns out there's actually nothing over here. So that's what he's like. Yep, it's not here. It's not set yet. Oh, nobody's over there. Ah, oh, boo. Oh man. All right, this mission doesn't last long. I'm gonna kind of skip ahead a little bit here. It's not super exciting, right? You got resing wardens. Go up to the next level. Just see the devastation we're dealing with these guys. It's being melted. All right, here's our big room. Got right, left. In goes the beef. I dive in there after them. All the minions are dead. Lieutenants are gone. Bosses are gone. I mean, this is it. Was just abuse. Like, that's disgusting how easy that was. I got a tip for longbow. Get some better powers. Get some 801 training, guys. There's my knockdown and my Atom Smasher, the proc I put. Oh. OG almost got nuked. You guys see that? Alright, watch this. This boss, I'm trying to finish him. And right there, he does his whale. Boom, OG goes from like full to pretty much nothing. In one hit, I'm seeing minus 868, minus 868 here. So it's 1700 damage. I'm thinking that's hitting him. Almost one shot at his ass. He's stunned. You almost got splattered. Nice absorb helped, shield helped him. Alright, there's another cool thing, a jaunt that I'm loving. Is the ability just to teleport like through objects. As long as you have the target locked on. To watch, I kind of pop up to see what's going on. Target, teleport. I did take a quick look before I abandoned OG to make sure nobody else was there. So he has to walk it off at this point. Now we got 3 characters that are doing minus defense. I forgot about that. You know, Gamma's got radiation. I've got radiation. Guy's got Peacebringer attacks. So a bunch of minus defense. We're all just chipping in with that. So should be no problem hitting. I don't know how much minus resistance they're all bringing, but I'm hearing Disruption Arrow going off. I mean, this isn't even a competition. Yeah, we just slaughter these guys. This guy wants to get up and get abused some more. So he's going to get smoked. So this is where, you know, the strategy of debuff defense, debuff resistance pays off as a survivability tactic. Even though I'm not slotted for just raw damage and creaming these guys, with all this debuffing we're doing, these enemies are dying so fast they don't have a chance to damage or kill us. All right, we got to go back down because we didn't go that other direction. I know a lot of people would just say, "Hey, death is the best debuff." This is true, and this is what this debuffing is doing. It's speeding up the defeats of the whole team. I mean, it's be hard to quantify exactly, but I think we'll see in some of the stats that'll make sense. All these guys. A lot of guys back there. Yep. Stunning everything. It's all debuff. It's all you see are the debuff arrows. Purple ones are minus defense. The red ones are minus resistance. Alright, so you can see the debuff arrows in case you've never noticed these before. Maybe you're new to the game or something. So watch when I hit this guy. Go back here, kill some shit. Where is it? Because I gotta get a clear image of it. Alright, you can see it here pretty well. So I've hit this guy a couple times now. There's minus defense, the purple down arrow. You can see the shield, that's the defense shield. And then here is your minus damage resistance. So I got both debuffs on this guy. Easy to hit, easy to kill. He's going to be done pretty quick. Bam, bam. I just teleported away from the main fight. There's too much craziness going on up there. We're getting shot from back here, so I might as well just dive in and start mixing it up back here, disrupt that crap. Put the drain on the guy, throw a hold on him. He's still debuffed. A couple big hits. He's down. All right, do we warn her? Game over. You've been warned. Again, all the stunning. I don't know if you guys saw that. Let's back that up for a second. All right, so in comes these knives, and watch, I get in the middle of them. Right there. I mean, I don't know if that was me or Guy, but you can see. I don't know if his boom boom's light power there, but all three of these targets are stunned now. Maybe it was part of him, maybe it was part of me, but there's so much stun stacking, and that's another thing I kind of want to bring up because some people will be like, well, I'm not going to bother doing, let's say, stun as a stalker because it's only mag 1 or 2, and it's only going to stun minions. Well, that's if you're the only person on the team with a stun. You have to start thinking of stuns or meds stacking. If you're playing on a team, which most people are, your teammates have stuff too. And so this is one of my, unspoken philosophies, although I'm speaking it now, is I don't necessarily worry about what my individual powers can do because I'm thinking about how it would combine with what my teammates are able to do. So if I'm able to bring a little bit of defense, some debuff, some control, and it might be kind of, minuscule on its own, but in a team setting, it's going to add up or multiply or whatever and make things even easier. So let's say in this scenario, and I don't know if this is true, but I'm throwing, let's say, mag 2 stuns on these 3 or mag 1, whatever it is. And then let's say, Give does a big ol' stunning burst or attack, whatever, which is probably another mag 2 stun. Now all of a sudden we got potential mag 4 stuff hitting, or mag 1+1 or 1+2, whatever. We've stacked stuns, and now people are dazed, confused, and I don't know if any of these were lieutenants or bosses. It's hard to see at this point, but that's how you can leverage these things and not be so, I don't want to say selfish, but just so worried about, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, or it's not enough for me to do. You got to think you got to think of the team. Down goes those idiots. They didn't last long. Oh, something else I got to point out right here. Back that up. This is something that's going to become important when I go over some more of these stats in a second. All right, I'm standing in caltrops, and you'll see all these little threes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 9 of them or something like this. All right, they're just ticking away. This is within a second. I'm taking multiple hits of caltrops. So just be aware that when you see hit stats that I'm going to show you, not just for overexposure here, but for any of my, characters DEF CON as well, a lot of times stuff like caltrops or burn patches or whatever, you're going to get not necessarily a lot of damage because this is maybe what 27 damage or something like that. Not a lot, but you're getting a lot of hits. So when I look at the hit stats, what I call avoidance, it's going to see like, oh my God, you got freaking lit up. But the damage per hit is really what matters. Look at all the ticks of damage. I'm a couple dozen right there that I'm taking. Stun on the boss. You just saw it from my.
All right, that's 2.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
I'm at this boss stun. Here's another example again of stun stacking right here. Boom. So I'm using my disrupt aura that has stun. Right, so I've got my disruption aura. And again, I think it's a mag 2. Should probably look it up, but whatever, mag 2. And then I'm hitting my energy drain power down here somewhere. And my energy drain, I've got slotted in there the proc chance for stun. And again, I think it's only procking 2 mag stun. But boom, boom, 2 plus 2 is 4. That's enough, high enough mag, I believe, for this boss right here. Right there, I was like, doing. They're stunned. I don't know if somebody else might hit him with a stun too, but this is what I'm talking about. You can start combining sources of minor things and turn them into major things. I find these little niche kind of build ideas just from that sort of concept. It's just where can I add things together? Where can I look for synergy? All right, mission done. I'm going to go ahead and pause this because I want to go back to our stats and take a look at what else was happening. All right, so we ended up talking about the ally defeats. Let's talk about damage taken and resilience. You just saw I was taking some decent chunks here and there. But let's see how that plays out versus these other stalkers as well. So here they are, the 4 of them, and you can see my average damage per minute was 424. Less than Uncaged Psyche, much less than what Dead Cell was taking, a bit more than what Xaos was taking. Xaos again was my big plus defense, minus to hit build. So he was designed not to get hit. So the fact that his defenses are showing themselves is not a big surprise. What I'm surprised by is just how safe overexposure was, right? Because she's not worrying about survival. She's worrying about getting in there and debuffing. But she has a good survivability. Is it because of the stuns? Is it because of the knockback? Is it from the teammates around me? I don't know. It's hard to quantify exactly why it is, but it happened. It worked. Is it because the enemies are dying faster? Maybe. Combination of probably a bunch of those things. But looking at the overall stats, she's doing pretty good. And look at your correlation numbers. You can see that her numbers correlate, right? So as time goes on, she is taking more damage. This is true, but the slope is showing you it's pretty shallow. It's not as bad as the amount of damage. So the steeper the slope, the faster you're taking damage. So you can see Dead Cell, he's taking damage at the highest rate. And then you've got Uncaged is next. And the correlations are pretty high. They're almost all right around 0.9, almost 100% correlation. So very strong data, but very sturdy data for overexposure. So she's, taking damage intake reliably, but she has consistent safety. She's not dying. Her allies haven't been dying. Things are going fine. Not as good as Xaos, but pretty darn close, it looks like. Then take a look at the rest of the stats for resilience here. Where is it? Right here. So we look at the side-by-side numbers. You've got your averages we just saw. When we plot those out with the standard error, you can look for the overlaps. And again, you can see, check it out, Dead Cell. He's in a class by himself, a bad class. The other ones, this is interesting here. If you look at overexposure is clearly more resilient than Uncaged Psyche. Uncaged Psyche was relying upon just the chaos swirling, getting in the middle of things, and everybody being stunned, slept, held, confused, whatever. You can see overexposure's methods working better than that, even though she wasn't as diverse in her her crowd control. So they're very similar builds, I think. But this is a more of an offensive melting build, where this is more of a defensive, confusing, and just controlling build. But very similar, yet different. And again, check it out, Xaos Warden. He's clearly in a class by himself. So this is sort of your first stat where you're seeing clear differences between the four builds. And I gotta say, versus my DEF CON series, I don't recall in that series where I had defenders versus controllers any one metric I looked at where all of the defenders and all the controllers were clearly different from each other. I'm seeing that though with these stalkers, which is very interesting to me. They seem to be pretty damn diverse, at least the way I'm building mine. So curious, interesting observation. Then the composites, this is that again, the rates per teammate statistic. And we're then taking a look at the spread, the distribution of the data. Dead Cell again, just wide distribution, not very predictable, kind of a wild card what was going on there. Probably the team composition was what caused that. Then you got Uncaged Psyche, data's much tighter, but we got a little bit of, higher outlying data. Probably one mission was pretty crazy, taking a bunch of damage, maybe the mayhem. Overexposure, very tight data. I mean, as tight, if not tighter than what you see Xaos. So very predictable, very reliable, and it's not that far away. Like, look, Xaos had, one I want to say stinker mission, but one of his, most damaging missions fits within overexposure's realm of her best mission. So overexposure has the chance to meet Xaos in that defensive category. Not as good as him, but pretty damn close to it. So, if taking a look at the overall resilience here and this defensive debuffing stuff that she's doing, she's just very stable, consistent, stronger than the other two disruption-focused stalkers, Dead Cell and Uncaged Psyche. Very small variance in her data, so she's not just safer on average, but you can know that she's predictably going to be safe. She's not going to die very much. Her allies are not going to die very much. She's not taking a lot of damage per minute. So you can reliably roll her out and have a good time and not worry about, oh my God, I'm dead. All right, next stat we want to take a look at with her is resilience and how that plays out in those defeat stats. So the first one we're calling Overwatch. This is the metric where we're looking at that incoming damage and whether it makes any difference or has any impact on whether or not allies are defeated. So it's almost like a tanking stat. Because I would assume, and I can't say this for sure because I haven't seen it yet, I would assume that a tank, as their damage goes up, I would assume their allies are less defeated, roughly, or maybe more, maybe a flat line because they're able to soak more damage. Whereas if, more damage is coming in, you're assuming everybody's taking some of that damage. And then allies at some point will start dropping off. They're going to start dying. So it's kind of a metric of that. Like how much of a beating can you take before people start dropping? Allies and yourself. So that's what we're looking at here. And overexposure's in the green again. And you'll see she's doing pretty darn good, numerically speaking here. So she's not a liability is what you can tell here. So, something like Dead Cell, he's taken lots of damage. So the slope, right? Slope is he's taken, 4,000 some damage and per minute, and bodies are dropping. So as his rate's going up of incoming damage, his allies are being defeated. So it's kind of like everybody's just getting hammered here. Whereas you take a look at, Uncaged, she's taken a higher amount of damage per minute, and her allies are not dying. So I don't want to say she's tanking, but it's just showing that here, whatever Dead Cell was doing is not helping. Where what she's doing is not hurting, might be one way to say. It's hard to say. Compare that over here with Xaos, who had very low, almost same numbers as she did with resilience wise, but his defense is much stronger. He's only taking half the damage roughly of what she's taking per minute, and he's getting about the same results as what she was getting. So he's a little bit better, right? His overall ally defeats are pretty low. And actually, sorry, that was Uncaged. I was just looking at. So yeah, this is Uncaged, not overexposure. So Uncaged, she's taking this bunch of beating because she was in melee, but it wasn't like hurting her too much. It wasn't hurting the team too much. Same thing with her up here. But Xaos and overexposure are very similar to each other. Very, look at their lines. They're not diverging much. They've only had one ally defeat total, and their slopes are 7,800, 5,200. So kind of middle-ish, right? The guy who's taking the least amount of damage per minute is the one who's suffering the most ally defeats. That's just like bonkers to me. So again, though, I don't know if you can point the finger at Dead Cell and say he sucks. I would like to rerun his test actually because I remember that team was very shaky in the first half. We had really suspect tanking that was going on, and I was having to put myself in harm's way a lot more than I wanted to. There's a lot of just chaos was flying. So anyway, that's what you're seeing there. Same idea here. Dead Cell taking a lot of damage per minute, and he's dying. Not a lot because there's only two, so it wasn't like crazy. But you can see how that's adding up. He was just taking a bunch of personal damage here. Not taking a lot here, so that's another interesting thing. So this is almost evidence of tanking, right? If you take a look, Dead Cell, he's taking 15k per minute and suffering a little bit more than the others. Here he's taking the least amount of damage and his teammates are getting wiped out. So I don't necessarily know it's tanking. It's just like he's taking a beating. His teammates are dying anyway. I don't know. It's weird how to try to figure out exactly what this means. I got to think about that, right? Because if you get, I'm kind of going off topic here, but this is some of the interesting things that this data then shows you when you look at it. And I think the importance of these tests is this sort of thing because this is showing me something. I don't know exactly what it is. The fact that he's taking 4650 per minute per ally defeat. And then over here, he's taken 15, thousand. So, what, 3 times more per minute per his own personal defeat. So it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, that a bunch of damage is coming in. He's taking a pounding before he goes down. Meanwhile, his allies are just getting fucking wiped. If I remember that mission, I think there was a lot of scatter play. Like the teams were spreading around too much, and people were getting killed in the background while he was up front tanking. And that was the problem. He was having to tank teams. Stuff was just bedlam at that point. So I'm thinking that's what's going on. You're seeing this weird difference between the two. Same kind of idea, I think, with Uncaged. We've got a lot of incoming damage before she goes down. Twice as much practically as what you're seeing Dead Cell taken. But it's not as bad here. I mean, this is a 12,000 to 25,000. So that's like a 1 to 2 ally to personal. Here, this is like 1 to 3 or 4. Interesting. And then you look at our star here, overexposure. They're like 1 to, I don't know, 1.2 or something like that. So much better. And of course, Xaos didn't die at all, so really no way to get a ratio. But that's something to look at, the ratio of these two numbers. I should maybe run that stat, see if it means anything. I'll have to make note of that. Interesting. Anyway, so then the last bit of resilience data I think I want to talk about here is the pet side of thing. Now, Overexposure doesn't have a bunch of pets. She's just got her lore pets, but all my stalkers have pets of some kind, lore or from their epic sets. So this number, this data isn't super, you know, mind blowing here because it depends on when the pets were out or not, if they even had them. But what you can see is we're looking at the pet's damage incoming versus team defeats. Pet damage incoming versus the character's damage incoming. And the pet damage incoming, I kind of like this stat just because it's a proxy, in my opinion, for ally damage taken. Because the pets are on the field at the same time the allies are, so it gives you at least an inkling of how serious the combats were. It gives us sort of correlation data there. And looking at the R squared, you could see Uncaged and Dead Cell have decent correlation where Overexposure and Xaos have no correlation. So the pet's damage for Xaos team defeats had no correlation. There was no relationship between them at all. I believe his pets were actually doing some good damage, and his allies hardly took any damage. It might even be a negative correlation. And then we've got similar overexposure. She doesn't have a lot of pets that were out, so I don't think they took a ton of damage. And then her allies were barely defeated. So I don't think you're going to see much with the data here. So overall, though, if you kind of try to glean any information out of at least overexposure stuff, I think your pets gave a little bit of a buffer without becoming a liability, I guess would be the thing. Dead Cell Psyche, and Uncaged Psyche, they show more of a relationship between defeats and damage taken. Their correlations are higher, 0.82 over here, 0.96, right? So you're definitely seeing that there. You don't see that with overexposure. She doesn't have any correlations, really anything strong at all. So best you can maybe say is her pets really don't have any tie-in with team collapse, damage taking. They probably spread out the damage a little bit, but they weren't tanking it. Probably just extra targets randomly here or there. Because I think I only had them out 2 of the 5 missions. So not a ton of information we can get there. All right, let's go into our next stats on the defensive side of things, and that's avoidance. This is the number of hits that you're taking. So this is where that caltrop number comes into play, because you're going to see that here. Yeah, that mission 2. Let me see if I can zoom in on this thing. Magnify the slide. Bang. Yeah. So if you look at mission 1 and mission 2, 56 hits versus 282, you would think, holy crap, I was being pounded in mission 2, but you guys just saw it. It was half the time, right? And then look at the rates, 4.3 hits per minute versus 10 times that, 40.3. Holy crap, you were being lit up. No, I wasn't. Where I looked at the actual, when you dive into Sithlin's tool, I took over 200 hits alone from caltrops, and it was only that one in part there with the knives showed up. So that was the only reason I have so many freaking hits here. In reality, the hits are probably about 70, if not less. So if you were to factor that in here, this number is much lower. It's like 10. And the same thing when you look at the Mayhem. When we watch the Mayhem mission, there's a bunch of Knives of Artemis you're going to fight. And over 200 of these hits are from them. So these numbers are misleading. This one, this one. Now I can't just delete them or erase them because they are hits. And the other characters are also having similar encounters, especially on the Mayhem missions where you're fighting the Knives of Artemis. The one exception here, Dead Cell, he didn't fight against knives on his safeguard, but still took a huge number of hits. And then the other thing here, check out Uncaged Psyche, because this is the other part of this, is that these 3 stalkers are all playing the same style of game. Get into melee and let your auras, your melee attacks start to do the debuffing. but overexposure is the one that's melting targets and hopefully dropping them faster. And I think you might be seeing an inkling of that, where these two are get in there and disrupt with controls and some, attritional sort of thing. And it's not directly leading to defeats of enemies. And I think if you start looking at these numbers individually, this kind of might be evident here that she is half or a little bit, almost a third of what you're seeing over here. Again, hard to say exactly that that's the cause and effect, but that would be my guess at this point. But if you look at the overall profile with overexposure, she's got half that hit load that Psyche, dead seller taken. So this offensive debuffing strategy is apparently working not just to debuff the enemies, but she's not an easy target, even though she's in melee all the time. Not as good as what Xaos is doing. Xaos is my pure defensive guy, so he's not taking hits just because he got a bunch of defense and minus to hit. But she's pretty close to that, pretty competitive. And if you factor out some of the caltrop stuff over across the board with him too, I don't know. It might be even closer between the two of them, and might be even more dramatically different than what you're seeing with Dead Cell and Uncaged Psyche. And you can see this again here on these graphs when you go ahead and do the side-by-side of the averages over here. I mean, here are my two, disruptive type of stalkers getting into melee, leveraging controls and things. Sleep stacking and endurance training for Dead Cell. You got Uncaged, which is leveraging a lot of controls like infusions and things. 25, 26, 28, right? And then overexposure's down here in the mid-teens. Xaos is around 7. Again, this number should probably be lower if you factor out the caltrops. I don't know if it'd still be as low as this. But overall, overexposure is, equivalent with what Xaos is doing. Xaos is clearly different from these two. Right? It's not even close. And overexposure is really close to being, I think there is some overlap here. But again, you factor out some of the caltrop hits. I think these two are clearly taking less hits by whatever metric you look at. Here we can see it again, I think a little bit more clearly what's happening. Xaos is tightly clustering. The other ones are spread out more diverse data. I think it's because of his nature just being defense built minus to hit. He's just not being hit overall, where these guys are being hit to different degrees. Dead Cell was designed more as to get hit and be able to heal it. He had a lot of bio armor stuff, so absorb. So he wasn't really worried about getting hit. Uncaged, she was diving into melee on purpose and waiting for the not stuns, but the controls to start working. Overexposure, lots of data down here. An outlier or two. Remember the mayhem and the that mission 2 were those outlying data points up here. So it's skewing her data a little bit, but the bulk of her data is down here and overlapping with Xaos. All right, so there you go. That is what you're seeing with these avoidance numbers. And she's keeping herself and the team safe, and she's taking more hits than Xaos, but not dying. The team's not dying. And then the last thing we'll say about avoidance is whether or not it even means anything, because just because you're getting hit doesn't mean that, oh my God, you died. And that's what this one's showing us here. If we take a look, you got the hits on the X, you got your damage intake on the Y axis. So how much damage per hit are you taking? And that's what your slopes are showing you on these graphs, on these lines here. So we've got Dead Cell is taking the biggest hits, 30.5 damage per hit. The other three are pretty damn close. Xaos around 21, overexposure around 21, and Uncaged Psyche is around 24. So 21, 21, 24, barely distinguishable from each other. Right? So they're not getting hit for huge boom booms. Meanwhile, Dead Cell 30, 31. So he's, an extra like 8, 9 or whatever damage per hit, which doesn't seem like a lot, but he's also being hit a ton. So that's where you combine those together. I mean, you can take an individual hit of 30, versus 20. That's not the problem. But if I multiply this out by 1,000 hits, now you got a problem if these guys are only being hit 500 times. And that's really where Xaos has that advantage, because not only is he not being hit for huge gobs of damage, he's barely being hit at all because of his high defense. I think, and this is what's interesting, here's where, how do you explain overexposure then? She's not being hit a lot, and the hits she's taken are not for huge gobs of damage. They're almost lockstep with what you see with Xaos, who's a defense build, and she's not a raw defense like he was. She does have good defenses, as you saw, but not as good as Xaos. I think part of it is that defense, but the other part of it is her toolkit. This minus defense, this minus resistance, is that increasing the speed of kills? And if it is that decreasing her damage intake? You know, that's kind of the money question, because that was sort of the premise of her build. I'm seeing signs of it. I'm seeing evidence for it. And I can't 100% tell you that, yeah, for sure, that's what's going on here. But she did get tagged a little bit, but it wasn't big hits. More survivable than the other two stalkers that dive into melee a lot. She's not avoiding the hits like Xaos as well as he is, but she's shrugging them off better than the other ones are doing without spiraling out of control and just getting freaking murdered. All right, so the last thing I want to get into with these stats, and I'm probably gonna, I'll wait till let's watch the next video and then we'll talk about disruption. I think that'll help us break this up a little bit. All right, let me go ahead and pull this back open. So, mission number 3 is on tap here, and we'll watch some of this. This one's gonna go for 11 minutes, so let's start checking this one out. Next mission.
See other stupid tip on the newspaper. We'll do it.
Jump ahead. Activate the riskier artifact.
Right, we did 2. Blow through a couple more tips, and then maybe we'll do the mayhem.
My sewer mission. Another good thing about kind of running these random missions like this is you get different maps as well. Lets you test your character's ability to handle different situations.
Oh, Jesus.
More peace bringers.
Peace eaters. All right, which way you guys?
I hate these butt plugs. Uh-oh. All right, so I think we just had a little aggro that we didn't catch. Yeah, this is one thing where it gets a little dangerous. So I'm looking down the ramp there. I see peace bringers. I look back behind me, and we have peace bringers that way. But notice I've got most of the rest of the team, I think, is all looking this way. You see Arjuna's looking this way. Change my color here. He's looking this way. Guy's looking this way. Gam's looking this way. And OG is in the back.
Peace eaters. All right, which way you guys?
There he comes.
Ooh, they're going that way. Turn around.
So somebody aggroed. I don't know if it was just Gamma Rot's presence being a tank, but boom, the peace bringers are aggroed. I don't think anybody else had noticed that this happened. I saw it, so I'm like, let me get in there and intercept it. And at the time, I didn't know if anybody else was coming this way or not. I assumed they were kind of doing the same thing I was, doing a left-right, before you cross the street thing. But I don't know. So I assume they're behind me. I'm going in. Stop this aggro. Just lay in with my big hitters. Gamma Rot's over here now. He's taunting.
They were zeroing in on our blaster, so I didn't have a choice.
There comes Arjuna.
I had a choice. I guess I could have just.
And now I think what's happened is I think we have a team split, because I'm seeing this dialogue bubble. Is that OG? I don't know if it's OG or that's Guy.
Left him die.
All right, okay, here comes OG. OG's puking his brains out.
Dwarf.
Yeah, see, Guy's not here, so I think he's gone down the slope and is mixing it up. And I don't think any of us noticed that he's gone.
Hear him right on the other side.
So, Guy, I don't know if you went down there by yourself, but that's why we went this way. Stuns. Look at all the stuns. Got fear. I don't know if that was from me or somebody else's fear.
Come on, these guys are almost as bad as the frickin' council. They're transforming.
Endurance is super low.
Probably don't want to taunt me. Frickin' guys.
Teleport and stun the guy as soon as I hit. Or stun.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I just ran out of juice.
Oh, no, he almost jacked me up. Trying to jack me up when my shields are down.
Yeah, going in like 3 fights back to back like that is a pain on the endurance. Taunt, taunt.
Nice. Now you guys are in trouble.
Stun him with the Atom Smasher, I think. Knock down with Corrosive Vial. Yeah, I ended up getting a lot more control out of this character than I was anticipating as well. But that's one of my, part of my goal here with these characters, is support stalkers, not just the damage, not just debuffing, but the control aspect. So whenever I can get some, I do it and I put it in there. And so I actually want to take a quick second then to talk about that disruption metric, because this is a little bit surprising, I thought. So disruption is my control uh, count. So however many controls you do. And you can take a look at the stalker side by side. Like, this is the rate per minute. So Xaos, who barely has anything, I think he had some knockdowns or something like that. 601 total controls, 7.9 per minute. Compare that to Uncaged Psyche, was built around the whole control concept, right? Like, huge difference between those two. 4,000 controls. And then you have Dead Cell and Overexposure. Dead Cell was kind of built around the control idea. Sleep stacking was his big thing. But Overexposure, I mean, I cha-chinged over 1,000, so I did have about the same as Dead Cell. I had more than Xaos, about a quarter of what Uncaged had, but again, she was designed to do this. But I was getting some decent amounts of control, 200 or something, 16.8 per minute versus the 17.4. So pretty solid. I think that's another reason why her survivability was pretty good. Not just the idea of meltdown and making the enemy die faster, but I was stunning things a bunch and I was knocking some stuff down a good amount of time. So that's something to think about when you're making your own stalker or whatever character you can, is don't rule out sort of those simple things that you can do, the debuffing and the controls, because they can add up to some good survivability. You don't need to just sit there and build straight defense or whatever it is you're trying to do or want to do. You can spread the love. All right, let's go back to our video here. See what's going on. So we're getting stuns, as you see, multiples of those over and over again.
It's bad landing.
Yeah, it was. This guy's just getting filled with arrows. Yeah, we had a lot of debuff. I think that disruption arrow that I'm hearing is minus resistance as well. So when the team was able just to layer stuff on, it was night time.
These beatdowns are soul crushing for these guys. Looks like 2 groups up here.
The gamma rats going in.
My longbow over there.
Yeah, so I just sell my lore pets to kind of soak some of the aggro to the right. It's just another group. I seen Guy getting his ass kicked. It's coming up. He's getting beat down.
Oh no, Guy's dying. I don't know where you are, Guy.
Right there. There's another recent jaunt's pretty cool. So check that out. You know, watching the team. Let's back this up a little bit more. So we've got. Here's our situation when we walked in here. So you got this group that's up top. There's another group over here, or part of the same group. I don't know. There's definitely something down below. So we're going up here, and I'm going to go up here, and you see me mixing it up, just trying to occupy space. I'm going to see this group over here getting aggroed. I think there's another part of the group down low. So I drop my lore pets over here just to get some more bodies over there, just to block, traffic. And then for some reason or somehow, Guy gets himself down here. So our Peacebreaker's down here. I don't know if he fell or taunting or something happened. So it's got like 3 groups going on right here.
My longbow over there.
Yeah, I think we aggroed that group that was on the bottom part. Maybe Guy went over there to pick him off. Right there, he's taking huge hits. All right, so he's taking huge hits. And I don't see him. Like, I thought he was over here. But now I don't see him. And it's hard to even see where he is because there's all this other Peacebreaker crap flaring everywhere. So he's taking a huge beat. And you can see he's next to me. He's over here. And all I'm seeing is this. I'm like, where the hell is he? And what can I do to help him? Because, again, I don't have any heal. So the thing I can do is get over there and start swinging. Maybe land some stuns. So I'm trying to keep him alive. So this is the cool thing with Jaunt is that I've got it bound to my T button. Is whenever I click T, you get the jaunt, but I have it, target. So whatever I'm clicked on, I jaunt to it. So it doesn't have to be an enemy like you see me doing a bunch. I can click on an ally and then bang, jump to him. So I'm like, where the hell is he? So I click on him, and I don't know if I got line of sight or not. So I kind of just hop up, hit T, and jump over where he is so I can maybe help him out.
I don't know where you are, Guy. There you are.
Yeah, he's just surrounded by dudes.
Well, that was sweet. So I just jumped up. I didn't know where the hell he was, but I selected him. And it teleported me right to him.
Boom. Now I'm over there. Gamma's over there. Guy's back on his feet. And so far, all 4 of my stalkers I've tested so far have the ability to teleport in some way or shape or form. Savage Leap, Lightning Rod, and Shield Rush so far.
Oh, no, it's my problem. I'm the supporter. They're fucking shooting me.
So we got damage coming in from every side at this point. It's a matter of you just gotta start killing what's in front of you. Rely upon your teammates to do their thing. Assume my blasters are blowing crap up. My tank's taunting. I mean, I am a support stalker, but I don't have anything I can do to directly help other than just dive in there. It's so funny.
Bastard.
Again, loving the ability to jaunt right past the pipes.
Alright, what's next?
There's more of these idiots, I think.
That's what she said. Whoa. Room full of ugly. Pie hole getting up.
We just ran by a group, aggroed it first. Yeah, okay, so this is interesting. So you see, I think this is the last room, but you see Gammarot dives in here to this visible group. And I don't think he sees this, but watch to the left. Boom, right there. So it looks like, oh, there's definitely another group over there. So you watch this again. He goes in there. All right, yeah, so check that out. He goes in there. Gammarot Guyve is following him. There's Gamma. Here's Guyve. I'm headed this way, and I see this incoming blast from the Peacebringer. I see OG Epic Strangers looking this way, so he's picking up this aggro. But we've definitely got another group over here. But the beef is all moving this way. So I don't think anybody saw that. OG dives in deep, and I'm guessing he's doing that because of the aggro behind us. Look at all these guys over here. So they've got eyeballs on us.
Oh, we got some potential aggro on the other side. Well, slight aggro, yeah. Actually, turn into more than slight.
All right, so I go in there to try to disrupt things again. Boom, get a couple stuns right there. Like 3 guys are stunned, right? I got the bot stunned. And then these 2 minions or whatever are stunned. So I got 3 of them already wobbled. So 60% of the enemy around me is now out of commission temporarily. Finish the bot. Gamma's with me now. He's taunting everything over to me. Maybe that was his intention. He was going to taunt this stuff to him and make a big dog pile, but I don't know if that's what he was doing or not. So I went in to intercept so there wasn't a big range bunch of aggro. We just destroyed that freaking group. And then we click the glowy, I think. Boom, and then all these Rickies start coming down down that pipe there. From back in here. Whole bunch of like, I think like 3 ambush waves or something like that coming in here. Bunch of damage. Look at that. Epic's taking huge hits. I was taking some.
I can't see anything.
Longbow back here. I don't know if they appeared. They spawned behind us. And then the Ricky came the other way. And then you'll see where I think both Epic and I have the same idea. Because there's this pillar sitting here that makes a good line of sight blocker. So both of us are kind of staying in the middle here because there's all this ranged attack shit is coming flying down. And I'm getting hit. He's taking hits. So we both get in this narrower center part to block some of this incoming damage.
Say hi to one of these idiots. If I can block them.
And then I want to teleport back there, but I can't because I got freaking taunted. So I was going to teleport and start interrupting all this, the Ricky in the back. Again, I see stunned guys around me. Dead guys around me now. Still taking damage from at range.
Fucking light form.
Alright, Gamma's over there picking it up now. More ambushers. I go back here to help OG clean up this mess. All right, Longbow are done, so the mission's technically over, but I think we end up waiting for another group or two to show up and finish them up. But I think effectively, yeah, another group comes in. But effectively, this mission's ended here. Nobody else dies or whatever. So let's go ahead and take a look at the stats on this. So we just saw the overall controls that I'm able to throw out here. But the controls mean anything? Are they doing anything beneficial? That's what we want to start looking at. So here's just the side-by-side correlations between the 4 different stalkers to see how they stack up with the error bars. And you can see easily Uncaged Psyche is dominating the control field. So she is a stalk troller, uh, overkill. Xaos, on the other hand, he's bare minimum controls. He's got some knockdowns or something like that with like shield charge. But these two, Dead, he's built around that sleep stacking, and Overexposure is built around some stun stacking. So the two of them are getting some decent amount of control. They're pretty much identical to each other, but they're nowhere close to what Uncaged is, and they're clearly superior to Xaos. So it's interesting, though, that they both kind of have a similar strategy. Sleep stacking, stun stacking. He's got some end drain. She's got some KB. I forget there's other things in his kit, but that was kind of the idea. I think there's probably some knockdown in here as well. But obviously, Overexposure's having a better survival odds here. So does that mean that this strategy doesn't work? I don't know if we could say that just yet, but it's definitely suspect. The data spread very tight between these two. Uncaged, way ahead of everybody else. Xaos far behind everybody else. But it didn't seem to affect Xaos, right? He was not built to control, so he didn't really care. But overall, Overexposure is just having a very steady, reliable set of data. And built around this idea of debuffing offensively, the fact that she's still able to also put out some good solid control numbers is a benefit for the team. And then the last part of this disruption stuff is the answering the question, does the number of controls mean anything? So we look at it versus the damage the stalker is taking, and looking at it compared to the number of teammates and allies, or the stalker and his teammates, total team defeats. So is it defending and protecting people from dying? Is it protecting the stalker from taking damage? Because on paper you'd imagine, hey, as I control more, I should be taking less damage. I should be dying less. And if that's true, then you should see kind of this downslope. Hey, as I control more, I'm taking less damage. As I control more, I'm being defeated less. And so this is what's kind of interesting here. So if we look at this metric here, everybody's upsloping. So everybody's controlling more as they take more damage. And I think that's just because you're in a fight when you're doing either one of these things. So if you're going to control something, you're fighting it. And if you're fighting it, it's attacking and damaging you. So I think that's why these things go hand in hand. And the correlations, do they show that? Yeah, I mean, Dead Cell is freaking correlating. Xaos is pretty correlating. Exposure is pretty correlating. Uncaged is pretty good. So everybody's pretty much locking in that, yeah, we're taking damage, we're controlling more because there's fighting happening. So there's no clear, definite evidence that controls are preventing incoming damage at all. Although you could argue that the fact that you're most controlling of the controllers has the lowest number, but then again, she's also has decent amount of damage taken. So it's more so that she just has a raw, sheer amount of damage or control that I think explains this. It's not that the denominator, the damage taken, sorry, the numerators. She's not that she's not taking a lot of damage. She's still taking damage. She just has so much damn control that it's blunting the fact that it seems like a problem. So I think this slope's a little bit misleading. Then we have sort of the flip side over here. Hey, I'm controlling more. I should be having fewer deaths. Clearly, that doesn't matter for Xaos. I mean, he's only got one total death, and he's barely controlling at all. So that's not a true statement. Then you've got Uncaged Psyche, who's controlling the crap out of stuff and having still decent numbers of team defeats. So I don't think controls are correlating whatsoever or have a direct impact on it. The only one you might argue that's is Dead Cell. But he wasn't controlling nearly as much as the others. So he has decent numbers of controls, but they're dying like bitches. So, what exactly does that mean? The fact that people are dying means he's in a fight. So I think that's the only thing you really can say out of that data. Maybe. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say exactly other than, overexposure. They seem like they're scaling up with pressure, but everybody else is too. She's not showing any big spikes of control like you see with some of the others here. So it's hard to lock down exactly what it means at this point. All right, let's wrap up the defensive side of this conversation. So what does this all mean defensively speaking? Xaos, he's built as this Guardian Stalker, right? He's a fortress. He's a defensive wall. He's got a bunch of minus hit buffing. Results of that build, that's what you're getting, right? He's got no personal defeats. His allies, there's like one defeat total. The lowest amount of damage per minute, the lowest amount of hits per minute. So he's doing his job. Xaos, right? Money. The team is harder to hit. That's what's working. He doesn't need controls to support. He's just preventing the teammates from taking a hit. Dead Cell, your starter lock concept so far. The idea being that I'm going to interrupt the enemy's offensive opportunities because you have these little sleeps. You've got this, overtime draining of endurance. And he's going to stick in there and just keep people. I think he also had a minus damage component to his build, if I remember his one aura. Results of all that, he was the weakest of these supporters so far. Allies, he had the most defeats. Personal defeats, he had the most. He was taking heavy damage per minute. And he had the most hits per minute. So he's taken a beating. I think, though, a lot of that was because of his team composition. And I'll have to go back and look at the specific numbers on him, but in the videos, but I'm almost positive that team was just in trouble. He did have some good controlling, but it seemed to just correlate with Crisis, with the damage, with fights. It wasn't preventing anything from what I could tell. Interpretation, overall the toolkit seems good on paper, but the numbers aren't showing it's keeping pressure down. He was having survivability problems and collapsing under fire. Was it the team or was it the build? Only way to tell is to run it again. Uncaged Psyche, her idea is Chaos Engine, just flooding enemies in melee with all these controls, confusion and terror, whatever. She definitely had the most control, the highest disruption, 56 a minute. But she also took the most damage per minute. But she was in melee to sow the confusion, so they kind of go hand in hand. You're expecting that. But it didn't seem to protect her very much. She took a lot of heavy hits, 26 a minute. As time went on, she did see more ally defeats. It wasn't crazy, though. But it definitely was some correlation, I think, with the longer missions. Controls scaled up, but didn't seem to protect compared to the other ones. You'd expect someone who's doing what it was 4 times or 8 times the number of controls. The controls mattered, then you would have seen a lot more, protection then, right? There was night and day between her and the other stalkers. Interpretation, she's delivering what she was built for, right? Chaos, lots of output. But it was messy. We had a lot of disruption. Didn't stop much, though. And things, as the fights got crazier, didn't seem to relieve the pressure beyond a little bit of staggering here and there. Didn't prevent much, though. And then our last candidate here, of course, is overexposure, the one this video is about. Meltdown concept, stripping defenses, stripping resistances. That's her game. Survivability seemed to pay off. Only one defeat. Very stable, very predictable. Ally defeats are very low, flat, no escalation, even though time was going up. Resilience, pretty low, 424. Not as good as Xaos, but better than Uncaged Psyche and Dead Cell. Avoidance, the hits, half of what these two were taking, but double what Xaos was taking, so somewhere in the middle. Targeting each of those hits that she was hit by, less damage than Uncaged Psyche and Dead Cell, but again, more than what Xaos was doing, but she was able to soak some damage, didn't get any big spikes. Pets, really hard to say because she didn't have them out that often. Seemed to give a little bit of buffering. Weren't directly correlating anything like team deaths, so exactly what that means, hard to say unless they were out every single mission. Disruption, decent number, 17 a minute. That's what Dead Cell was putting out, way below what Uncaged Psyche was, though. And overall interpretation for her, she nails this design, I think. The minus defense, minus resistance. She's not that defensive fortress like Xaos was, but she wasn't built that way. Although she surprisingly is pretty damn good at not being hit, not taking a lot of damage. She's not throwing out the controls that Uncaged Psyche was, but again, it wasn't really designed to have that much control. She was somewhere in the middle. But I think the key is I think her debuffs were working. I think they did shorten the fights. And it allowed her to be consistently safe. Exactly the direct correlation between those two, I don't know if we can say that. But we think it's evident that it's definitely helpful. There was no weak numbers that you saw from her build. She didn't collapse anywhere under any pressure. She didn't show a bunch of ally risk, even though she was diving in there and taking hits. And she definitely was not trading survival for offense. She was able to do what she was designed to do, and it didn't seem to impact her team. Was it because her team was great? Again, we don't know that. It's hard to say. Final takeaways on the defensive side. Xaos, he's a wall, best defense, but very low disruption, very low control. Wasn't built to control. Dead Cell, he was a liability. Exactly why that is, I don't know, but compared to the other three stalkers, he just was. His style is stutter locking control just didn't seem to translate into the safety that you would hope for. Uncaged Psyche, massive amounts of disruption, but it didn't seem to pay off what you thought it would. And it escalated in these drawn out fights, but didn't seem to prevent anything, even though more and more of it was available. Overexposure, stabilizer. Best at, not the best at any individual thing, but if you add it all up, she was very good at supporting the team offensively and keeping herself and the team going defensively. So the meltdown role didn't leave the team exposed. Bottom line, offense first debuffing can be safe. She's held the line steady, manageable way, better than what her other two melee disruptive stalkers were able to do. Better survivability, less risk to anybody, and still throwing in damage, still throwing in control. Very reliable offensive leaning of the three that kind of have that same style. But Xaos, I mean, he's the man compared to them as far as the defensive metrics go, which of course takes us to the offensive metrics, which I want to get back to the video for the last couple missions to look at evidence for this. So we're looking for damage output, we're looking for enemy defeats, we're looking for efficiency of the character, we're looking to see if the pets are contributing offensively, are the controls contributing offensively. That's what we want to see with this next last couple of vids. So let's go ahead and get this thing queued up for the next mission. Okay. Jumping over to, oh yeah, polar shift. So we're gonna go and run one of these tech
9
maps.
minutes. As you know, we're running about 12 minutes of mission right now.
All right, fourth mission of the bunch.
Oh yeah, look at all these guys.
Fucking Cray City.
Piece of this. Look at them all.
This is only gonna be a 9-minute mission, so even though there's a lot of enemies, like we just mow through these Cray. I mean, that was just all right. That was just, but crazy. I don't know. Whenever people see Cray, they just go off. But look how many dudes are in here. There's a group here, in the front. There's a group in the back, and I think there's a patrol coming through here. And it looks like there's some guys over here. I mean, what? There's like 3 groups in here. They've got force fields. They've got debuffs. And Cray could be kind of nasty.
Who wants a piece of this? Look at them all.
I'm gonna patrol in the back. Might be 4 groups in here. One off to the left as well. So throwing in the debuffs, diving in with the melees, eliminate this first group. There goes the patrol to the right. They're not aggroed, they just got taunted. Okay, try to finish this guy off before it's too late. I'm watching the back corner group too, because I'm waiting for them to start aggroing any second now. Now here's where an 804 would have gone sideways, because the perception on those enemies is way greater. All those groups would have aggroed on us instantly.
Something about fighting the Cray. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, here goes the back corner. It's being aggroed now.
Turn off some of these toggles.
So I seem to be getting my share of kills. I don't think I'm getting a lot of the scrub kills though. So I'm diving in there, working my magic, and I see bodies start dropping around me. But I think that's the blasters are just unloading. There, I got a big hit on this guy.
That was a nice heap and handful there, though.
Right, so we pounded those guys pretty thoroughly. We get in one of these rooms. I mean, this is...
Oh, man, I think we got patrol on the right, plus a huge group on the right.
Right, I mean, this is one of those classic rooms that wipes a team. There's the obvious meat in front of you, which most people that are noobs charge in there and take this on. But there's also that other group you saw over here. And sometimes it can be real close around that corner. A lot of times there's another group over here too, like back here. So you got 1, 2, 3 probably. But the real killer is this group that's up here all the time. There's a 4th group up here that sees you coming down here and they start shooting you. And then usually someone over here is going to aggro and they start shooting you from this side. Then you start getting crunched from both sides. And often there'll be another group back here, probably off to the right usually, that if you get too close to the ramp back here, and one of them is spread out over here, you can start taking some fire from the ramp as well. So you can easily take on 2, 3, 4 groups in here on accident and just get murdered. And nobody ever just thinks to, hey, turn around and go back down the elevator. It's right there. They just dive in there, get destroyed. And here's another example where the squishies get killed because they follow too close to, let's say your tank is in here, getting their butt kicked, and then boom, they dive in here, your defender, controller, whatever. These guys start jumping down and shooting this guy, murdered. It's over. All right, let's see what else happens here.
Left, right, middle, patrol. So like 4 groups in here. If I can take them all on. You guys are fucking hilarious. Screw it. Give me them all.
Yeah, like there's like, what,
Here,
three?
I'll bring some more for you.
There's like three groups over there. I don't know if you just saw that. So you got this group here. There's a patrol right here coming through, and then I just glanced to the side. There's another group over here. So we got one, two, three groups here. There's a group we're fighting, and then if you saw Gamma Rot popped up high, taunted the group that was up high to dive into the middle. So there's five groups in this room right now, and the team is just feeling itself. So they're like, screw it, let's just do it. I go in, get my debuff leverages going in this area, and I'm like, well, screw it. I don't want to be taking range damage. So I chuck my fireball at these guys, start pulling them. Some more control. Here they all come. Yeah. Well, we got so much range damage. Like, what does it matter? See, here's where the blaster's just racking up kills. You can see all the numbers. Was that rain of fire?
Dude, this is fucking nuts.
Sleet, I think, is going off. Rain of arrows is going down. So I'm not getting barely any of these kills. Hopefully my debuffs are definitely helping.
Nice. Now we're leveling up like beasts. I mean, that was a blaster stream right there.
Yeah, those guys got a ton of kills. So I'm getting some decent kills here and there, but it's usually at the end of some big melee.
It's about 5 groups total, I think.
Then there's this room. There's a group down low and up top. Huge destruction. Yeah, blasters just getting kills after kills after kills. Minions, lieutenants just going down hard. I'm just trying to soften up everything that I can. That area's cleaned.
Some more.
Down we go. More AoE. This is abuse. I mean, these bosses are trying to get their nukes off, but I don't think they're successful. I think they're just dying by the time it animates. Melt armor in there. Jaunt. More stun. The guys are dying as before they get up. Just dead. I mean, I think I got like one kill in that group. Damn blasters.
Saw somebody coming that way. Polar shit. Oh, somebody give me a big old nuke.
So it'd be nice to be able to figure out some way to see, because I'm thinking my controls are actually contributing towards deaths of the enemies. Like I'm seeing a lot of my stun guys or knockdown guys are just getting freaking
Don't lead people out.
being murdered right after I stunned them.
This is the glowy though, so I'm sure this is what we gotta do. Click and take her ass out of here.
Stupid.
what's the odds that we're gonna get an ambush on escorting?
Alright, so we're splitting a team. Normally we wouldn't do that, but I think we're just destroying things so quickly that nobody's afraid of being overwhelmed or anything.
Oh, who's got the monkey peewee? Freaking epic. Epic, you monkey peewee, man.
Get out of there, Epic.
Dude, don't taunt me, Gamma. What the frick, you confused?
Yeah, Gamma's taunting the shit out of me here. Should have lit him up.
Don't make me AS your ass. Dude, stop taunting me, you dumbass.
Freaking Craig ass.
But I can't even hit you. That's what sucks. Epic, you're going monkey shit over there. Let's just kill this group. Get out of here.
Freaking Epic's about to die. I don't think he does, though. I think I got the kill on that dude. Alright, last dude. Done. Splat. Alright, let's look at some of these offensive stats. That's the way that mission went down. Alright, so lethality. Foe defeats. This was my lowest of my stalkers. So that's the one thing that is interesting as well. Besides the high level of survivability that this character manifested. But check this out. So Xaos, who was built to be a defensive character, has the most of the foe defeats. Then 261, then 281. So these guys are all pretty close. 260, 280, right? In that range. And then you look at overexposure, 200. So I'm off by, 60, 70, 80 kills compared to the rest of these guys. But then the other thing that's interesting is if you look at the rate, it's pretty damn close. 3.6, 3.6, 3.5, 3.3. So it's not that off from what you can see. And the correlations are strong. 9.6, 9.4, 9.7, 9.2. So this data's real. Not as many kills, but the time of the missions was less. So the rates were actually almost identical. So all the stalkers offensively, as far as finishing enemies, are doing about the same thing. But meanwhile, the one stalker I built to kind of make it easier to kill things faster, overexposure, has the lowest of them all. And the guy I made to be the guardian has the highest. It's like, that's, what's going on with that? That's what I'm finding a little bit confusing with the data. But here it is. I mean, they're virtually identical to one another. And then you look at the spread of the data, with the composite numbers here, almost identical. I mean, there's very strong overlap. Uncaged has a little bit of extra lopsidedness here, a little bit of skewed data down. Overexposure is a little bit extreme as well, but not crazy. So no major differences here. So I think that's kind of where the real story, I think, is. I think her kit is working. I think we can see that the minus defense, the minus resistance kit is working because we see the shortest mission times overall. We see good survivability, both her and her team. So it's arguing that things are dying faster. But she's not getting the defeats herself. She's getting fewer than the others. So hey, where are those defeats going? I think that's where we can explain it here as well. I think they're going to her allies. I think the allies are capitalizing on hitting more often and hitting harder. They're getting more of the kills proportionally. It would be nice to see their data, but not just from that mission. If, let's say, one of those characters like Guy, if he'd been recording stats from multiple outings and knew his normal numbers, let's say. Hey, normally I get, I don't know, 5 kills per minute. And then all of a sudden in this run, he gets 7. Okay, that would be some interesting data to see. Now, I don't have that data. No way to get that data unless I literally have the same teammates running the same characters and recording every single time, which they don't. But that's what would be my guess is that that's where her kills are going, is to them. And you saw that in some of those fights there, where just the rains were coming out, just erasing things. Then let's take a look at damage output, because she's doing damage as well, but similar story. 412, 336, 387, 287. She's got the lowest damage output of everybody, even though she's specifically debuffing damage resistance and defense. And the guy who is built to be the defensive guy is putting out the most total damage. And when we look at the rates, this is where the real, true data lies, is the per minute. These three are very close, 5,000, 5,000, and 5,100. So almost identical to each other. She's actually the most damaging, this control-y build, which is, again, kind of interesting. But here, overexposure has clearly the lowest DPM compared to everybody else. And the correlations are locks, like perfect. Okay, so this is not, some random data. This is true data. So, hey, why is she dealing the least damage per minute compared to everybody else? Now she's maybe the least offensively slotted as everybody. I'd have to go and look at a line by line comparison of the, tier 1, 2, 3 kind of punches. But you'd also think because of all that defense debuff and damage resistance debuff that she should be able to capitalize on that and get better DPM. But clearly not. Now, is that difference statistically significant? That's what this graph is going to show us. If we look at the side-by-sides, here's where you want to look for those overlaps. And here she is. So her upper level, it's less than what Uncaged is doing, but it's within reach of Dead Cell and Xaos. So these three are within reach of each other. It's Uncaged who's sort of the outlier, but even then, even that's true versus overexposure only. Uncaged is matching Xaos. Xaos is less consistent. He's got some high ones and some lower ones. Same with Dead Cell, where Uncaged Psyche is just consistently high amounts of damage compared to the other ones. Overexposure doesn't have a big wide range either. And so we can see that in the composite data. Very tight data for Uncaged Psyche. Xaos has a couple of outliers. Dead Cell a little bit, but not so much. And Overexposure had like one, maybe it was that mission right there, one of her really low damaging missions that she had. But just interesting looking at it that the person you're expecting to be the most offensive is not. And the person you're expecting the most defensive is, but they're also very offensive on top of that. And then it's also interesting that of the data we looked at so far, this is some of the most consistent data across all the stalkers. Like they're all very similar to each other. The number of kills they're getting per minute, the amount of damage they're putting out per minute. It's very homogeneous cluster of data. Then we look at, hey, does this data actually translate into kills? Like, right, you're doing a bunch of damage, but does it mean anything if it doesn't actually defeat an enemy? Depends on your perspective, of course. But here we go. Damage output versus foe defeats. Consistent looking at correlations, very strong. So the more damage they're doing, the more defeats or foes are defeating. The more foes they defeat, the more damage output they've had. So this is locked down for sure. The slopes is where you want to look at the amount of damage required to take out an enemy. 1450, 1500, 1300, and 1169. So this is interesting. dead cell needed the least amount of damage to take out a foe. Were they damaged by his allies and he was just cleaning up the trash? Maybe. And then you've got Exposure, who has the debuffing of enemy damage resistance, needs the second most damage to take out an enemy. Okay. And then Xaos is spending the most damage to take out an enemy. So does that mean he's going rogue and he's alone by himself a lot? You know, I don't know. I have to go back and watch those videos. I know he was doing a lot of shield, we call it shield rush, whatever the hell it's called, the teleport attack. Opening alpha with that, so that could explain part of that, getting the big hits and killing some minions with like one shots. I don't know, but weird, interesting. I'd like to see more of this data from the other stalkers to see if it all starts to some sort of patterns play out here. But that's where it is right now. All right, so then the last thing before we kind of get into our final video here that I want to look at is the pets on the offensive side. Because stalkers aren't known for their pets, but they do have access to them, and I do have the data. So let's take a look at it. I mean, overall, it's interesting that they are getting very little pet output. I mean, 5-10%. I think on average it's probably around 5% of a stalker damage is coming from pets. Even though some of them have lore pets and they have epic pets, it's just not a ton of damage. Compare that to my controllers I've looked at. In the original DEF CON series, they were about 50% of their damage was their pets. Defenders from the original DEF CON were around 30. And that was with purposely taking epic pets and stuff. More like 20 if I only had lore pets. But stalkers, 5%, 10% tops. So much, much lower. And then the most consistent performance was Xaos's pets. Overexposure was able to get some good juice out of her pets, but she only had them out a couple times. So if she can get those longbow pets out more often, and this is like real 15%, that could be something. But at the same time, remember, she's putting out the least amount of personal damage. So it just makes sense that her pets, when they're out, are contributing a higher percent. So there is some interesting data here, but I don't think it's going to make or break anything at the end of the day. And then the contribution as far as how that pet damage translates into anything, because that's, does it mean anything is what we care about. So the pet damage output versus foe defeats, and then the pet's damage output versus the character's damage output. Is there any correlations here? Here's again some interesting data, because for Xaos there is correlation. So Xaos's pets were contributing to foe defeats. This is a true statement. It does line up. Less so for Dead Cell and Uncaged Psyche. So their pets were out, they were doing damage, but we can only say that it's explained about 3/4 of what we're seeing here. And for overexposure, there really isn't much of a correlation at all between her pet damage and foe defeats. And that's because her pets just weren't out that much. But this is an interesting insight here. Why was Xaos Warden's pets able to be so effective, I guess? And I think this goes back to his defensive build. I think he was protecting his pets better than the other characters were able to protect theirs, so they were surviving longer and therefore having greater impact on killing enemies. Or they just did crap damage overall and then happened to get lucky and made the final kill. Yeah, possible. All right, then the regression. This is the relationship between the two, the pet and the stalker. Correlations again. Xaos is showing correlation. His damage is correlating with his pet damage, so they're lockstep with each other. So his pets are out and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And then you don't see barely any correlation with overexposure's pets. They were dying or they just weren't being summoned. So I think overexposure's pets, wild cards, sometimes they were hitting pretty hard, right? They were getting that 10-15% of the damage. But not like you see with Xaos' consistency here. So they don't seem to scale up and didn't really translate necessarily into any kills. So maybe they were just opportunistic, got some hits in, and then died. And I think Dead Cell and Uncaged Psyche, they're in between that. All right, let's get back to our video. Actually, yeah, we'll talk about this real quick, then we'll wrap it up with the video. So the last major step before we take a look at the final video and then wrap this whole thing up is this efficiency metric between how much damage output the stalkers are doing versus damage in. So damage in is you're in the middle of a fight. Damage out is that going up as you're in the fight. Are you giving as good as you get? What's that relationship? What's that ratio? And there's a really huge difference here. Check out Xaos's ratio on average is 23 to 1. So he's putting out 23 times the damage he's taking in. Dead Cell 6, almost 7, 9 for Uncaged, 10 for overexposure. So we're looking in the 7 to 10 range for these three. But he's up here like 23, 24. So it's like 3 times, 2.5 times the freaking damage output versus damage in. But he was taking very low damage, so he could kind of afford to not do a lot of damage. But he did a lot of damage on top of not taking much. So it's interesting. And I know Dead Cell was taking an absolute beating. So he was taking a lot of damage in. Did decent damage out. Uncaged Psyche, she had the highest, I think, output damage, but also had a lot of incoming damage. So her ratio's not that great. And overexposure, again, was kind of the happy medium between the group and has the best correlation. So damage out, damage in are locked step. Dead Cell is too. Uncaged Psyche is pretty good. Xaos Warden, I think he was more spiky. I think that's what we're seeing. Some of his data can be explained by just spikes of big damage. And when we do the side-by-sides on the graphs to look for overlaps, again, these three are pretty damn close to each other. Overexposure, Uncaged Psyche, I think there's overlap here. And then Dead Cell is overlapping with Uncaged Psyche, but not with overexposure. And then Xaos is just a man alone. But check out that, see, outliers. Outlying data is making that look, I think, a little bit more dramatic than it really is. These guys are much more consistent with each other. Dead Cell did have, one good outlying mission. So mission parameters can also impact these numbers. And I think a lot of his damage actually, Xaos's came from his Mayhem mission. All right, let me kind of pause that discussion and let's go to our final mission, the Mayhem mission for overexposure here. All right, so Mayhem mission starts. We're doing Peregrine Isle bank robbery. And I always run these things kind of the same exact way. I like to do 3 side missions first before I do anything else. 3 sides, and then the bank. Might do 4 sides, but usually 3 to be consistent. The side missions, for the most part, are unlocked by getting a key. And the keys are acquired by defeating Knives of Artemis spawns on the map. At least here on the PI bank robbery mayhem mission. You can rob the bank anytime you want. But I like to do the sides. This builds time. It gives you enough time to go and have some fun. As well as in case you run into something tough in the bank or something happens, you got some time to spare. And then I like to do this. I like to go and I'll blow up some stuff over here to build some time. All the destructible objects add up. You can get bonus time. I try to avoid fighting the cops on the streets because it takes too long. You don't get a lot of time. So I'll go over here, blow up some cars and stuff in the parking lot. I like to then go over this wall, blow up some boxes and crates over here, build up some time. If you want the badge, exploration badge, it's right through this gate over here. Just don't go too close to the peace bringers. We'll see you and start attacking. And a lot of times I don't even bother going over there because when I go over there, somebody follows me and they think I'm charging the peace bringers and they'll go dive into the cops and start a fight, which is a waste of time. If you see me go over there, I'm just going over there, grab the badge and leave, and I come back over here, blow up the cars. So that's my basic plan. Boom, boom, boom. Blow up some stuff. Go find the Knights of Artemis spawns. Do the side missions. Get some time built up. Then hit the bank and then leave. So that's what you're going to see us do. And the team pretty much follows that program, and things go pretty well. So here are the cars. I'm like, let's start blowing this crap up. I don't want to take these cops on back here, but I do want to blow up the vans because they're worth more points or time. Here, just blow it up. Don't aggro the cops. Beautiful. Looks like we didn't aggro cops. Nice. I'm going to go over here and check out the girlfriends. There they are. Okay, check this out. I'm going to start taking a bunch of damage again. Okay, so watch all my little caltrop damage. So I take like 200 some hits from caltrops here. Now these girls here are the ones you need for the key to get to the jail mission. But you don't actually need the key for this jail mission. You can just go in there, which I find disappointing. They shouldn't spawn the jailed NPC unless you get that key, but it just does anyway. So into the jail you go. Got PPD in here. OG's outside getting his ass kicked. That's one thing you gotta watch out for these bank missions is if people go off script. They get isolated outside. They can end up dying. I don't think he does, though. When was the last time you did one of these, Give? To the best. Come on, I had his ass knocked out. Frickin' res. Oh yeah, I remember that. That's more of a rubber band back. That might have been the one where I got wrecked on the way out of the arson, if I recall. Epic Strangers like redlining this whole time. I'm not even sure he's in the jail with us. Or he went downstairs already, maybe. I don't know where he is. I think he went down. Epic, did you get lost or did you go downstairs already? Yeah, he must be outside. I hate coming off this elevators. They just start attacking you instantly. Watch out for the ambushers coming. Bust through this door.
There we go.
All right, 3 minutes for that.
All right, let's go arse the street.
So exit the jail, and then across the street, I want to go get the arson key. Gotta fight off some of these idiots here first. Crushed them. Of course, your stupid pet goes off the rails, attacking everything. Lit his ass up.
There's your girlfriends.
Right, more caltrop damage incoming. Rain of Arrows is devastating.
What's that, 2? 2 tonight? Fucking lucky night.
Bleeding out.
All right, we got our key.
All right, this is the arson mission. And of course, it triggers ambushers.
Arson. I'm not holding the door. Somebody else do that. Stalkers don't hold doors, guys.
I hate getting stuck holding the door if somebody doesn't have a lot of AoE.
I'll click some glowies. You guys kill stuff. We'll get the pawn shop after this. Should probably wait for the ambush and not get murdered outside.
All right, these guys get smoked.
All right, how much time you think for that ambush to show up?
Next ambush comes in. Taunted again. These guys are just doing some big stomps. At Resing.
Should be able to get out. Okay, let's cross the street
Alright,
again.
so,
Get the other key.
Getting, look at all the little hits of damage I'm taking from flames. Alright, so I'm gonna go across the streets. We're gonna kill a few guys in the way, because if you don't, you try to ignore them, they follow you, they start attacking people in the back door. Alright, kill this crap. Alright, now we got knives coming. Stupid peace bearers keep coming. Now we can take on the knives over here. Okay, we beat up these knives. More caltrop damage.
Dude, where are you going? These freaking NPCs off the chain.
as usual. The one thing we do different here is I don't want to go in until we've cleared the group in front of the pawn shop.
Every time we don't, somebody gets dead on the way out.
Yeah, like I was saying, if we don't clear the thing, the doorway outside, usually somebody gets killed on the way out. There's some ambush plus the guys outside. And I think there's actually two groups we end up getting stuck with here. Yeah, there's a group behind us shooting, and there's a group in front of us shooting.
Sweet, I think we got like 2 different fights going here. And when we go inside, we'll have a couple people trip all the alarms.
Here comes more of the stupid cops. Alright, so it took us like a minute or two to just clear that stuff out the door.
This is why you want ranged attacks as a stalker. All right, there we go. There's our bonus. All right, let's trip some freaking alarms.
That's the best part. Get a couple of AoE monsters at the door. Everybody else trip the alarms. I don't know why they don't scale up these guards in here to be something realistic. It's 2 alarms have been triggered, I think, so far.
Get all the freaking ambushes to show up at once.
There's 3.
Each alarm you trigger brings another ambush.
So my disruption toggle is disabled while I'm hidden. Right, blow up this stupid door.
Oh, I missed this freaking door.
Keep punching the door.
Come on, get me through there.
And boom, there goes the door.
Trigger some more alarms. On my way. Bonus time. A little smash and cash.
There we go. That's going to trigger more. That'll trigger more ambushers.
There it is.
Click this one.
Should bring more ambushers. Oh, come on, guys. I want to click this thing.
All right, more bonus times. Another ambush is going to come with that.
Should be a whole bunch of ambushers coming.
So you end up getting, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8, 9 ambushes total. And they just keep coming in and piling up. You just obliterate them when they walk in the door. That's where you rack up the kills. I'm sure these guys are just racking up defeats with their blasters.
How much murder at the door?
Destruction, boom. Just set up and unload. That's why you don't want to be the only person there as a stalker, because you just don't have enough AoE to take them out fast enough. They start overwhelming you. Alright, so then we're like, hey, let's go hit the bank. Off to the bank. Got the longbow guard in the vault. It's usually rough coming in this first door.
They level up.
Let's try to pick up the pace, so I'm pulling stuff from back there, clearing the way through.
If we don't get an AV, I'm gonna be pissed. Like how many of these I've done so far?
Place your bets. See if we get an AV.
Maybe 3 AVs.
Boom, blowing up these stupid longbow. Get to the elevator. Down the elevator we go. These guys get destroyed.
That was just murder.
Down he goes. Start working on the vault.
I grabbed the cash.
And then we'll see who we get. Once you grab the cash, it'll announce the heroes that come to get you.
Yeah, Babs.
We finally get somebody tough. Back alley brawlers coming.
Get me some new gauntlets. I hope Arjuna's not about to get wrecked somewhere.
Yeah, like Arjuna disappeared at some point.
Sweet money.
Were they with us in the bank? Gotta rewind this a little bit. Yeah, okay, so no. So OG's with us, right? Then OG disappears. Or there's OG. There's Arjuna.
See what this character's stats are. Who we get? Sweet. Get me some new.
There's OG. But where the hell is Arjuna? So one of the blasters, I think, disappears somewhere.
I hope Arjuna's not about to get wrecked somewhere. Arjuna, where are you even hiding?
Alright, so Arjuna's missing. I don't. They must have went up. But then I see the arrows. So Arjuna, where are you? Way up high or something? Oh, he got stunned.
Stunned already. Holy shit.
So again, there's an example of, I think, just stun stacking. Since the AVs have boss level mez resistance until their purple triangles are up. So So we're beating down on Babs here. And I like that I can debuff all of his stuff. Right there. So I was at full health. But right there, that foot stomp from the dwarf wounded me. Then Babs goes unstoppable and foot stomps me for 17-14. So normally the one shot rule would kick in and stop you from being killed down to 1 HP, but because I was already damaged, it's like boom. That was my only death right there. Nothing I could do about it.
What the frick stop was that? What the? Dude, that was not cool. He knew who the biggest threat was.
Keep working him. I mean, at this point, the fight's over, but just got to pound through his tier 9. Another huge hit. And then boom, he's done. All right, there you go. And then we pad the stats as some more idiots come in, but irrelevant to the mission. So that was the end of it. That was my only death. Only the second team death. So very good work team-wise and just the Stalkers build. So let's wrap up these stats because the last thing I want to get into is how the controls affected offense. Hey, were those stuns and those knockdowns leading to anything? So that's what these two metrics are looking at, amplification and yield. So this is controls versus your damage output. Right there. Is there any correlations there? You can see, Uncaged is correlating strong. So is Dead Cell. So is Exposure. Even Xaos is pretty good. So in other words, as controls go up, your damage output goes up. And that kind of makes sense because usually controls are damage. A lot of controls have a damage component, or you're slotting them with some damage procs, or just simply the fact that your control is you're in a fight, and while you're in a fight, you're doing damage. So it's the same flip side as you're taking damage with controls. So definitely correlation here. The question is how I get the slopes, whether or not these mean anything. You're doing more damage with less controls. That is a steeper slope. You see that with Xaos. He doesn't have a lot of controls, yet he's doing a lot of damage. So they're not because he's doing a lot of controls, or his controls aren't doing more damage than anybody else's. It's just that he's doing more damage overall and doing fewer controls. Where Uncaged has tons of controls. She's doing a lot of damage output, but it's just so many controls are diluting that fact or that appearance of this. So this metric isn't again super insightful on what it's telling you, other than hey, you're seeing some correlations between those numbers. Then this one, are the controls contributing any at all to the foes you're defeating? So your controls maybe competing or contributing to damage, and damage is then leading to defeats. Is this true or not? Are you setting up defeats by controlling? That's what we're trying to figure out here. So again, we got number of controls versus the defeats. Steeper slopes are showing you're getting more defeats with fewer controls. And again, Xaos is kind of showing the steepest slope because he's doing the least control. You got the shallow slope with Uncaged. She's got the most controls. But can we say that one leads to the other at this point? There is correlation between them. So it's definitely some relationship between foes being defeated and controls. There's relationships between the damage output and controls. But my argument would be it's just because you're in the middle of a fight, they just go hand in hand. I don't think you could definitely point and say, oh, yeah, because I was controlling, that's why I did more damage. So, anyway, overexposure, she's amplifying her damage with control quietly, though, not like, Uncaged is doing. She's not overwhelming with controls like Psyche, but it seems that her controls are, correlating definitely with damage and with the defeats. Uh, how much? Can't really say. Her disruption is efficient rather than excessive, I would say, though. So even modest control volume is part of your lethal toolkit. So I think you can do both at the same time. You don't just need to deal damage. You can deal damage, you can defeat enemies, and you can control simultaneously. So bringing this home, let's look at the offensive side of things. Xaos, the Guardian Stalker, that fortress, right? He's got steady damage on top of his layers of defense and debuffing. And as he's attacking, his damage is debuffing. That's a hit. Results wise, respectable damage per minute, 5,000 and some change. Steady foe defeats 3.6. His coup de grace slope has shown he's needing to pump more damage to take out a foe. So why that is he soloing more? Is he just, you know, taking on tougher enemies? Mono e mono, maybe. Pet contribution small, but it was consistent around that upwards of 10% on the high end for the stalkers anyway. He wasn't a top slayer though, but he was reliable. His offense was based upon, I think, persistence rather than any sort of major burst damage. Looked like he was steadily grinding enemies down, and his debuffs are softening them up. Dead Cell, he's wearing down enemies. He's draining them, using some opportunistic strikes. Damage output solid, 5,000, about the same what Xaos was doing. Efficiency was pretty low, though. 6.6 damage out versus damage in compared to, what was it, 23 or whatever for Xaos. So what's up with that? I think he's just taking a ton of damage. Pet contribution, so-so, 6%. Coup de grace, he was putting in a bunch of damage per kill, but maybe too much. It's kind of hard to say again without all the other stats of all the other characters to kind of figure out exactly where the damage is going. His offense looked sharp, but probably not sustainable. He was putting out damage, but he was taking big hits. So it was costing him and less efficient. Uncaged Psyche Chaos Engine. She's overwhelming enemies with the controls, trying to carve through them with all the confusions and things. She's got the highest damage output. She's got the cleanest slopes there of damage to defeat. So she's killing efficiently once the chaos is taken hold. Pets, pretty much non existent. Interpretation, offense was decisive. All those controls, they were not just disrupting, they were doing damage, amplifying her ability to finish enemies. Messy, but when it was working, she was putting it out there. And that takes us to, of course, overexposure, this Meltdown Stalker. She's radiating pressure, right? Combining heavy personal damage with the bursts of pet support. Because when her pets were on, I mean, they were like putting out some decent chunk of change here, at least percentage wise. But she had the lowest overall damage output. Yet efficiency was pretty good, aside from Xaos. Her coup de grace slope showed she's delivering more damage per enemy defeated. Likely because I think you saw it there a few times. She was handling the tougher, more resistant foes. The blasters were just cleaning up all those scrubs around her and leaving her with the bosses to throw the last blow on them. Interpretation, her offense was about quality over quantity, I think. She wasn't, topping the charts with sheer kill numbers or damage output, but just steady damage. Some burst damage with the pets out makes it meaningful. And when she was hitting, when she was striking, it was counting. So if we add this all up, we take all this defensive stuff, all this offensive stuff, look at our 4 stalkers so far and try to line them up from, worst to best. Where are we sitting? Well, our overall takeaways on this offensive side is, excuse me, Uncaged Psyche, uncontested offensive driver, lots of controls, lots of damage output, getting kills. Dead Cell, got some offense, but efficiency's low. He's hurting the enemy, but they're hitting him too. Xaos, big time defensive, but got some offense to throw out there as well. Overexposure, again, we're looking at that ability to debuff. Validated, I think, by some of this data. So she's not huge amounts of kills or whatever else, but I'm thinking her damage output that's landing on bosses is counting to kill them. But the idea of lean but lethal applies because the minus defense, the minus resistance is being capitalized by her allies to take out the little guys and letting her focus in on the big stuff. Bottom line, she's able to carve out, I think, a place in the offensive side of things without being this loud, flashy stalker, but just relentlessly melting and cooking things down. Very good efficiency. Very low variability in her data. So overall, very efficient, very precise. So putting it all together then, what do we got? Fed this all into Kathy, ChatGPT, and said, hey, let's sort these out. Last place, number 4, she's got Dead Cell, which I don't think any surprise to anybody. The least effective at this point. Strengths, clear concept of the shutdown, the endurance drains, and the sleeps give him pockets of control, she thought. Threat was pretty good, 5,000 per minute. So he wasn't not doing damage, he was. But overall weakest of these support stalkers, highest ally defeat, highest personal defeat, taking the most damage per minute. It was bad. Lowest efficiency, his damage was costing him too much. He was able to put out this damage, but he was taking so much. He was in this 6 or 7 to 1 ratio. Control seemed to be more reactive to combats and things getting spicier to the point where he was dying, but not really using the controls to save anybody from what we could tell. Spiking under crisis instead of preventing collapses. And his pets, so-so, not too bad, 6%. Where do you think he's going to fit best? I asked her. He struggles as primary support, and he's only going to fit in if there's a durable, control-heavy team. I would agree with that. I think this is true, and this is what he was lacking. He didn't have durable teammates. They were dying left and right, and I don't forget what control how much control we had, but it was soft. I mean, things were very chaotic on that team, and the team was relying on him to anchor the fights. And so I think Kathy's spot on here. Don't rely on him to anchor the fights because that's what got him into trouble. And the team was right behind him or right in front of him. So I think if you put him in the right composition, he'll be able to layer those shutdowns like I think you saw here a lot with overexposure. But he's not a backbone. I totally agree with this part right here. I think that argues his team was not good. Third place, the bronze. Uncaged Psyche, the Chaos Engine. Strengths, huge disruption, right? 56 controls a minute. It's blanketing the area with controls. Probably over control, really, because I think multiple targets had multiple controls on them at the same time. So it wasn't like there were 56 different enemies or controls. The same enemy is controlled 6 times each. Strong throughput, so lots of damage. Cleanest damage to kills slope. So her chaos is translating into fast kills. It was working. Excellent amplifying team damage. Her yield correlation was the strongest. Weaknesses, messy control scaling. So even though it's scaling up, it's not doing much. Disruption increased with crisis, didn't prevent anything. And the ally defeats climbed at the same time. So even though she's fighting more, doing more, controlling more, her allies are dying more anyway. It wasn't huge numbers, but it was noticeable. She took heavy punishment. Not as bad as Dead Cell, but pretty close. Lots of hits. So she was in the fight a lot and didn't have easy mitigation. Virtually no pets, whatever. I don't think she even has epic pets, whereas Dead Cell and Xaos do. So it's just her lore pets and didn't make much of a difference. I don't know. I forget what lore pets she's even got. Best fit. Where do you want her? Aggressive snowballing team is what Kathy is proposing here. She's looking for teams that can exploit the chaos before it turns on them. Excels at overwhelming enemies in the first minutes of a fight, but struggles to keep order in extended or attritional battles. Yeah, I think that's possibly true. Just extended fights is usually because there's some really tough boss that is immune to her controls, probably. I think the ranged thing is the bigger issue, which I don't think Kathy mentions here. If the enemies are at range, they're not being controlled, and so they're then going to be able to damage, which then kind of explains this. And then just the idea of over control. You can control, but so much, right? It doesn't matter if I got them held and feared, it doesn't matter. It's not helping me any. So this may be a moot point. It may be realistically you were only getting 20 controls per individual target that mattered. All right, that's our two last places, third and fourth. What is our top 1, 2? Well, it's obviously Xaos and Overexposure, but which one does Kathy think is the better of the two? Who is our first place and who's our second? Let's take a look. Overexposure, silver medal. Reliable workhorse is what she thinks. Strengths. We've got balanced across the board numbers. Very true. Second best defensive intake. Second best avoidance. Efficient control use. Highest offensive efficiency. Shows she's punishing foes reliably when she's pressed. The pets are able to meaningfully contribute. Gives her some spikes that the other ones didn't have. Weaknesses. Lowest is damage output, though. Lowest lethality. She gets results, but it's just slow. Coup de Grâce. She had to pump more damage per enemy, suggesting her debuffs weren't necessarily translating for her, at least, into easier kills. Maybe her allies were getting all the easy ones. Best fit. If she's on a balanced, attrition-focused team, she's going to bring steady damage, survivability, reliable efficiency, even if not flashy. I think you saw that a little bit in that Bab fight, Back Alley Brawler. That was a long fight, and I think she was able to steady damage. She was able to stand in there until she got that big foot stomp. Efficient damage output. She's not flashy, like destroying the dude, but she's just throwing out the debuffs, getting the damage in on them. She's not going to carry the DPS, but she's making sure progress is happening even under pressure. So the allies are definitely capitalizing on what she's able to do. And then our last first place gold medal goes to Xaos again. Premier supporter at this point. Near perfect durability. The lowest damage intake. The lowest hit rate. Near zero personal ally defeats. Best overall efficiency. He's turning danger into damage without any collapse. Solid damage throughout throughput, even though he's a defensive build. 5,000 and some change. Weaknesses, he's got the lowest control disruption. So he's not preventing any chaos. He's just avoiding. I don't even say enduring. He's more avoiding it. Coup de Grâce shows high damage per kill. So meaning he had to push harder to finish enemies, possibly. Or he just happened to be the one taking on the solo enemies himself, the tough ones. Best fit, where would you want to put Xaos? Put him on a fragile, heavy damage team that needs a rock to stabilize him. Yeah, I could see that. He's going to deny some incoming damage. He's going to shrug off pressure, keep squishier allies alive while grinding foes down. Almost tank-like. Less ideal in teams that already have tanks or where active control is more valuable than raw resilience. I don't know about that. Because his team, I believe, did have a tank. I think that's the one that had a dark tank or dark melee tank. So there was some more to hit debuff coming out. So I don't think he himself is going to carry the load because he doesn't have any way to draw aggro. I mean, he can get in there and hit hard, hit fast, but he's not going to pull stuff off of somebody. I mean, hell, Overexposure is better at that because she's able to jaunt over to allies in trouble. So I'm not sure I agree with that. Or should I just disagree with it? But yeah, not necessarily needing control on the team. And I don't think he has raw resilience. Again, he's more just not tanking. He's not of taking beatings. He's just not being hit, and he's helping his allies not to get hit. And then he's diving in there and laying down some smack and defeating enemies so that they don't have a chance to take on his allies. So I don't know. I think it's pretty close right now between Xaos and Overexposure for the top two. I agree with that. Xaos, I think, does have an overall edge depending on the team he's on. And I do agree these two are the bottom two. I do agree Dead Cell is dead last at this point. But I think a lot of that had to do with his team. Uncaged Psyche, I don't think she's given her enough credit for what she was able to do, though. Well, I think, my friends, that is going to wrap up this experiment with Overexposure. Meltdown Stalker. Share your thoughts in the comments. You know, what'd you think about her? If you've seen the other Stalkers, what's your take on the group of them? Are they living up to their potential? Are they helping to save the team or not? Would you rather just have a defender or a controller than one of these support stalkers? Let me know. I still have 4 more to go, though. So the story is not over. And not only that, I'm going to compile all their data into one lump of stalker data and compare that directly to my defenders, my controllers that I've previously tested and try to direct head-to-head comparison who is the superior supporter for your team. Defender, controller, or the support stalker. All right, everybody, have a good one. Take care of yourselves, and later.